No, I'm curious too, because you seem to be like super interested in what goes on inside my girlfriend's vagina. It's really fucking creepy. Holy shit.
No, like
You're really invested in this. This is like a really important story to you. If you want, dog, I can give you her Instagram and you can message her and ask herself. You seem to be really concerned.
Are we gonna like get onto a topic here, or?
He wasn't prepared, so.
Well, no,
Does our moderator have anything?
Oh, I mean, I sort of figured that the main thing you guys would be going at each other for is the topic of race, but and whether or not, to what extent it's real, to what extent it matters.
Does Destiny think race? I don't really know what Destiny's position is. Does he think race exists? Like, does he think genetic groups are a thing, or?
I mean, yeah, genetic groups are a thing and race exists. I mean, as far as you want it to, sure.
Okay. Well,
But does that have any impact on society?
I mean, it depends. How much do you want it to impact society? I mean, for a white nationalist, it has a pretty big impact on society. For somebody that with a more traditional view of America or whatever, if we were talking like melting pot stuff or designing policy for an entire population, probably not as much. It just depends on your point of view, I guess.
I mean, that's traditional for the last like 60 to not even 100 years, but for like say traditional America in the sense of like its inception or like the majority of its history, that would a melting pot in terms of like different types of white people, sure, but a melting pot of just like all the mystery meat under the sun, not so much.
I mean, back then, I mean, different types of people that we consider white today, I mean, would have been considered mystery meat under the sun. So, I mean, I think the term white can become like pretty inclusive, depending on how big you want to cast an umbrella. But I mean, I at the end of the day, I guess it comes down to like, what policies do you want to enact? You know, like if we're talking about like we need to deport all black people back to Africa.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Which talking policy or
but
deporting?
I think we should get rid of the Jews first.
Okay, but you have like no way to do that. So what's the point of having that conversation?
Well, I mean, there's no way to do it right. Well, what do you mean there's no way to do it? Like you could.
No, I mean, you would never get the political support for it. You don't even have the political will among like one party in the U.S., let alone consensus on the parties. I mean, like you're talking fringe groups of fringe groups right here. I don't know, it's just kind of boring to fantasize about like what your perfect ethno-state would look like, starting with the deportation of the Jews. It feels like I'm talking to like a communist who wants a whole planned economy. Like it's never going to happen. What's the point?
I figured you'd be more extreme, but you're like more concerned about like practical solutions and like stuff that's actually possible to enact within, say, our lifetime, or like
like what are policies that we can enact that would like make the world a better place insofar as we see it like right now? Like which direction do you want to head? Because I mean, we can all jerk off about like our ideal like utopia, but I mean, I don't know, save that for 4chan or forums. Like it seems like unproductive for a conversation.
I like that. So, what do you, if you could pick one, what's your like top reform that you think is possible to get into action that would have the biggest positive impact?
In the United States right now, I think it's a toss-up between two things. One is the war on drugs, and the other would be a form of universal health care.
Okay, so...
What do you mean by the war on drugs? You mean ending the war on drugs?
Yes.
You're not the one.
Yeah, so like ending the war on drugs, I think has a ton of positive downstream effects, some of which impact the meat under the sun, I guess, if that's how we're referring to people that are not white enough. Like getting rid of the incentives related to like drug trade and hopefully like gang violence. We would go pretty far in doing that by getting rid of the war on drugs, legalizing a lot of the stuff and selling it in stores would reduce the amount of different types of people, especially African Americans, being sent to jail, which reduces the single family households, which reduces the lack of education among African American communities, which reduces the amount of poverty. Like it would just, there are so many positive downstream impacts from nixing the whole war on drugs ideology, like dramatically reforming the DEA and the scheduling system and all that. I think it would be incredibly beneficial, and it would help with immigration as well. I just think that's like a disastrous policy that like very clearly needs to go, but I don't know if there's political will for it like there is for healthcare. So that would be like my number two, I guess.
I mean, I actually agree. I don't think making drugs illegal has overall been a positive thing. So
yeah,
just every kind of drugs.
Yeah, I just just legalize all of them. That's always been my position anyway. It's not very authoritarian of me, I know, but it just seems in terms of like enforcement versus what you actually get out of it, you're better off just being laissez-faire about the whole thing.
The only really authoritarian points you seem to stand behind are, the authority to just exterminate every other race.
Well, yeah, so it's like it comes down to game theory and evolutionary psychology. So the game theory thing is if you have two teams, one team doesn't really care who wins, and another team does and is willing to win at the expense of any other team, then mathematically that team is always going to win in the long run. And then the question becomes, where do you draw the lines of teams? And the most fundamental line that you can draw between people is race. So then, any race that decides to be as ethnocentric as possible at the expense of all other races, if necessary, will dominate any race that doesn't adopt that strategy.
Okay. Where to start? So from an evolutionary psychology, I hate Evo Psych because there's so much dumb shit in Evo Psych. But if we were to go down an Evo Psych road, I mean, technically, the reason why human populations thrive has more to do with cooperation than competition between groups, right? Like humans are a very social creature. As much as we fight for like traditional family households, that's not even the natural state of like human families. It's not like a man and a woman father and then two kids or whatever. The natural state is actually like group houses, like having like 50 to 100 people in a single given like group, everybody like taking care of each other's children, like everybody sharing tasks. Like that's like the quote unquote natural state of like humanity. The idea that like somehow we need to dramatically outcompete each other in order to, I guess, like thrive as people. I mean, I guess I could see that if there was some ultra cancerous group of people within a race that was trying to like exterminate another.
I can think of one.
Sure, I guess if we run down the Jewish route, we could do that. Another thing that you brought up is like the most fundamental line that we can draw between each other is race. That's an incredibly arbitrary line to draw. Like I would argue a more fundamental line would probably be gender or sex. Like men versus women could be a fundamental line. Now you could argue, well, men need women to reproduce or whatever, but like we could draw fundamental lines anyway. We could do it on hair color. We could do it on eye color. We can do it on race if you want.
So I can explain why race is the best one, and also you brushed over something to start with. Let me try to remember what it was because you spoke for a while. It was an important point though.
Multifamily households.
It was the thing. It was the thing you said. So, cooperation. You said.
Sure.
So yeah, humanity is better if we just cooperate, just in general. But the problem is, if you cooperate with everyone, that opens you up to exploitation because then one group can then take advantage of the group that just cooperates with everyone, and you don't have to cooperate back. And you can observe that in, say, Europe giving a bunch of free stuff to minorities, and the minorities don't really pay that back, and so Europe suffers. Or like white countries in general sort of do that.
That's like, it's like such a simplistic analysis. I don't even know where to start. I mean, if you're really like saying that, like, oh well, if you give one group of people something, they're going to take advantage of a group. Like the way that this plays out is going to be so much more complicated than just like an incredibly simplistic game theory analysis. Like you have like a 2-player game and both players are trying to optimize for themselves, right? Like we're talking about policy implemented on like a trade union, European Union level, on a country level, on like a state level, on a city level, and then how that intersects with like different groups from different countries that immigrated different way. Like, to just say that it's one group taking advantage of another, like even how you break out these groups is going to be different. Like, we can talk about illegal immigrants, we can talk about legal immigrants, and we can talk about refugees. I'm sure that you're really familiar with all the rape stats or whatever from refugees going to parts of Europe, but you know that even not all refugees are the same. Refugees from Northern Africa are going to be a lot different than the more educated refugees coming from Syria. The way that you become a refugee, whether you file with the UNHCR or you come from like a Saudi Arabian like refugee camp, like to try to just like lump all of these people together and say, well, they're taking advantage of the whites, when even white is such an ambiguous term, especially in Europe. I know as Americans we seem to have a concept of white, like, yeah, I don't know. That's just, I don't even know how to begin to say like minorities are taking advantage of the white people.
So you didn't really say anything there. You were just like, it's complicated, Cammy.
Well, so to be more concise, what I'm saying is that your analysis is so reductionist, it makes no sense. It doesn't really, you're not really making any claim. You're saying minorities take advantage of whites. What if I were to talk about the entire history of imperialism of white people over minority people in Africa or something?
That benefited minorities a lot because, I mean, Africans hadn't even invented the wheel before white people came along. So that was like the best thing that ever happened.
So firstly, I don't think that's true. But more importantly, I don't think imperialism benefited the people in Africa who had their resources exploited and whose countries haven't caught up.
Where do you think Africa, like, if Africa was never touched by anyone but Africans, what would Africa look like today if you had to like theorize as a hypothetical?
I mean, it's not really relevant. That's not really how civilizations or humanity as a whole develops, right?
But you said that it was a bad thing.
I said that imperialism, that taking advantage of third world countries and exploiting them for resources or labor is typically a bad thing. Yeah, that's like a...
Well, that was like an incentive for whites to go there, and overall, I think it took blacks out of the Stone Age.
First of all, that's just not true, right? Like, unless like civilizations like that grew up like in Egypt and stuff didn't need like white people to take them out of the Stone Age or something. But regardless, even if we were to make like an argument based on like ancient history, humanity, that doesn't really give us any guiding principles for policy that we should enact today. Like, it's just not really relevant to any of the...
What about no race mixing?
What about it?
Like, outlaw it. Outlaw race mixing.
What do you even consider as a race? Should Anglo-Saxons be able to breed with like Serbians or Iranians? Do Middle Eastern people, are they white enough to breed with like do Swedes and French people? Like, where do you draw the line at?
More specific would be better. I'd say if you like broadly, you would do like Europeans. Like in,
what does
in
European mean? Wait, are you American?
Like European, African. No.
Okay.
But, like, obviously my ancestors would have come from Europe.
But that doesn't... We come from Europe. Europe is a continent.
Yeah.
Like Europe isn't a single ethnic or national group.
I'm saying if you were to do it broadly, you could do like European, African, Chinese, whatever. Or you could do it like more specifically, like you say, you could do like Nordic, Anglo, Med, and then like all the other ones like African.
Do you consider people like of Polish descent or of Turkish descent? Like, do you think that, do those count like as white, or does every single different ethnic group get bred only with every single different ethnic group, or?
I mean, there's been some that kind of had like a European refugee crisis, except it wasn't like refugees; they were just like taken over in their history, and so they're not like really white, like that happened to Greeks and stuff like that. But...
So then what do? Do you just start passing laws that says no race mixing? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we had anti-miscegenation laws in the past in America.
We've had lots of different things in the past. It doesn't mean we would just implement them again. We used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe in the past. It doesn't mean it was a good idea. I don't know what appeal that is.
But you were saying it's like, oh, how do you even categorize them? Like, how could this even be done? And well, it was done before, so we're clearly capable of like splitting the races into groups.
Just because something was done,
even if you do it broadly, it's going to be better. People are going to be better off genetically. So
wouldn't it just be better to focus on like actual like problems in society than just like LARPing over like race?
Is a problem because race mixed people are more likely to be mentally ill.
What is your ethnic background? Are you like a purebred Nordic or British or whatever the fuck? Like,
I'm half Nord, half Anglo.
Do you know anything beyond that, or just that broadly? Like, is your race mixed? Are you fucked mentally then because your races were mixed, or?
I mean, no, that's like Europe on Europe. That's not like half Chinese, half African or something.
You know that like other people, so like I don't know where you stand on Nazism, but you know that they weren't cool with like all European people, right? Like they referred to like a very specific type of white person. Like this grouping, this like super arbitrary grouping of like what is white because it looks white to you is kind of a weird way to just group the races.
So what's your point?
You're not really like making any strong claims. You're like picking some arbitrary trait that like feels
I
good.
don't think you're making any strong claims, buddy. You're just saying, you're just being arbitrary. And like, I'm saying, I'm making points. I'm saying no race mixing. And then you're like, well, I don't even know what a race is.
Well, so like you're dancing around, but at the same time, like you've heard of the "we was Kangs" argument, right? Where you guys make fun of African Americans for trying to claim Egypt. Like that's about as cringy as trying to claim that like all of Europe is white people. Like the entire continent of Europe has been like fucking like overtaken with violence for literally millennia because different groups of white people have been fighting against each other. The idea that they're all just white people is such a naive and stupid point of view. They're like, I'm surprised that you're European and actually have it. So when you say that like I'm just attacking your point of view, of course that's because you're giving the positive claim right now that you want to avoid race mixing. Earlier, I gave the claim that I wanted to end the war on drugs. I explained why. I explained the downstream effects of it, and I said this is why I think it would be possible, and I think there's political will for it. Your solution to problems today are get rid of race mixing because we had it 100 years ago. So yeah, of course I'm going to be critical of your claim.
I said it would improve the genetic population.
What does that even mean? Improve the genetic population?
Because people would be healthier, not only mentally, but also physically, like in terms of their immune systems. Because people think that the more genetically mixed you are, the healthier you are, but that's not actually how genes work. Genes sort of come in packages, and it's called like gene clusters. I'm trying to be like as simple as possible here, just to make the point as quickly as possible. But you got gene clusters, and different genetic groups, races, have gene clusters in different places, and so when they try to mesh together like they've evolved to, because people evolved around people of the same race, they don't mix properly, and you have a less adequately mixed people. Again, it's a very reductionist
I'm pretty sure like so like even if we were to believe that's true, I'm pretty sure some of the best athletes in the world, like the top of the top of the top, are race mixed people. Maybe we can argue that that's for different reasons or whatever, but if we actually cared about people's health, like if you were to tell me what can you do to make people healthy around the world,
I mean, they're not race mixed. I mean, you got like the runners are all like Ethiopian or whatever, or like African, or just one of those, and then like
there's a ton of race mixed athletes, like maybe like in certain Olympic divisions, maybe there are certain people that have like a specific race, but there's a ton of race mixed athletes in the NBA and golf. Like there's
one.
Steph Curry.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. I mean, Tiger Woods. I mean, we can go through like there's like a million different people that.
Tiger Woods is a black guy.
Doesn't he have mixed
half
parents?
Asian, half black.
Yeah, so
Tiger Woods is a half actually.
Okay, so but like let's ignore that. Okay, so let's ignore that. It's great that like never mind. So let's ignore all of that. Let's assume that this is something we can do to make the population healthier, right? If you really wanted to make people healthier, and your goal is to say no race mixing, if you wanted to get people healthier, shouldn't we start with like diets and exercise? Wouldn't that be an easier place to start that could get way more advantages than not race mixing? Because I'm pretty sure that if we could change one thing today across the Western world, and it was either diets or race mixing, I'm pretty sure that like diets would yield way better health results than just having people breed with people that look like them.
I think we could do both.
Really? So how would you begin implementing policies to say no race mixing?
How would you begin implementing policies to say no dieting?
Sure. So in the United Kingdom and in the United States, we entertained the idea, but in the United Kingdom, they started doing a sugar tax, for instance, on sodas. So not only have they reduced the amount of soda that's been sold in the United Kingdom, I believe there are studies that are following that's showing the overall consumption of sugar has decreased in children as well. So that's an example of a policy that was implemented on a tax level, right? That you have a higher VAT on sugar drinks, and then you can see the downstream impacts of children consuming less sugar and having better diets. So what about for you? What are your examples of successful race mixing? Like policies like being implemented?
Successful, like I say, there was plenty of anti-miscegenation laws in America previously, so just re-implement them, I guess.
Well, but those all lost out because we're not there anymore. So it seems like that's a pretty shitty way to do things.
Because the left, like minorities primarily vote for the left, so the more minorities you have in the country, if you're a leftist politician, the more likely you are to get re-elected.
Wait, so the slaves voted themselves out of slavery? Like, clearly it took majority power people to undo these things, right?
Yeah, so you import more of them, so you have a majority.
So more slaves got rid of slavery by being against slavery?
After slavery, mate.
Yeah, but how did we get rid of slavery? It must have taken white people to do it, right?
Yeah, white people decided to get rid of slavery because they were like...
Okay, so if you have majority power people together with superior European genetics, I guess, if that's what you'd call them, and those superior European genetic people decided to get rid of slavery, I guess that's what...
It was probably Jews, honestly.
You think the Jewish people back in the 1800s in the United States?
They probably had something to do with
it. Okay. Yeah, I guess all the early 1700s, 1800s Jews in the U.S. Abraham, what was his last name?
Lincoln.
Finkelmeister. I don't know any stereotypical Jewish last names. I'm sure you've got a ton of them.
Abraham is a Jewish name.
It is.
Oh shit! It came from the Bible. Uh-oh. We need to get an ancestor. We need to get a 23andMe on Lincoln's fucking frozen corpse somewhere.
Well, actually, Abraham Lincoln would have been Catboy's guy. Abraham was actually planning to deport all the Africans back to Africa. He was killed before he could do it.
True. Yeah.
Wow. Is that actually true, or is that totally invented?
You can look it up.
Dude, have you not heard of the country of Liberia? It was created for that purpose. They have the U.S. Constitution still there. It's actually an unchanged version of it, relatively.
Even the flag is practically the American flag, but with just a bunch of stars removed.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
maybe you would have liked Abraham Lincoln then, damn.
Just to give them a place to go.
Well.
And they say that they didn't care about the slaves after they freed them. They gave them their own country. But I'm not the one you're debating. You're debating the Catboy.
Yeah, this is a point from the chat was brought up as well.
It's kind of an interesting point. Why do you think Liberia didn't work, Destiny?
I have no idea about the history of Liberia. You've pivoted away from almost every other point. I mean, eventually you can get me on something that I'm not well read on, but...
No, I'm not trying to get... I was just... Honestly, I don't give a fuck what you read.
Okay. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, my main problem is, like, I mean, I've done this with socialists, too. Like, when I talk to, like, all these people that LARP as, like, commies and shit, and it's like, all right, well, how do we get to socialism? It's always some fantastic revolution. They have, like, no good ideas. But it feels, like, very LARPy when I talk to, like, these white nationalists, too. Like, half these guys don't even know their genetic background. The other half of them would have been exterminated by the same white nationalists that they defend. Like, they literally are making we was Kangs arguments, pretending that their Polish ancestors would have been protected by Hitler, when the exact opposite was true.
Single fact to back that up.
So, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, other than, like, circle jerking about utopian fantasies where you can walk around and everybody can look like you and you get, like, wives assigned to you by the state, I don't know. I just don't understand what the point is.
I just can interject with a question from the chat.
Sure.
It's for both of you guys. It's question is, what if they instituted a HAPA tax, a tax on all half Asian, half white people? Would that work? Would that help?
That would work.
Well, yeah, one, you wouldn't have the political will for it, and two, yeah, it just
I'd vote for it.
Doesn't sound like a great idea.
Just a question. I was just, phrasing it from the chat. I had a lot of people asking.
Sure.
78% of slave owners in the U.S. were Jewish, and the first slave owner in America was black. Yeah, okay. I know. That still doesn't, like, the entire war about the liberation of slavery wasn't really about slavery, as I understand it, and more sort of a power struggle between the North and the South end of America.
There's a lot of
true.
Wait, what was the power struggle over again?
Trade. You see, the North had all the power in elections because the South wasn't as densely populated.
But the South had a lot of the production base with all the plantations.
But they weren't getting represented.
Not really a production base, actually. They only really had agricultural production. They had no industry, which was another reason why they were being underrepresented.
Oh yeah, sure. But the plantations made a shitload of money compared to the industrialized North, which was still, industry wasn't as profitable back then, I suppose.
Well, I don't really know how much Tiny really knows about U.S. history, but the war was not really about slavery. Slavery was just sort of a side option here.
Okay.
So like
we
this is
back.
just absolutely not true. The Civil War was about slavery. That's what it was about.
Why
Like
did almost every Confederate leader say they wanted to end slavery?
maybe that was a concession they were willing to make towards the end, but I mean, like, you can go through like any historian thread, you can go through anybody that studies like this, the ahistorical revision. They're like, oh well, it was actually that was a minor issue. It had more to do with the representation. It was over slavery. I highly recommend anybody to look at any academic consensus on this rather than white nationalists that like to spam LARP opinions about it.
Do you have a source to back up your claims? No, but like actually, wasn't the plan to end slavery so then they could guarantee votes for some shit?
Like the ordinance of the secession, the document that the South made to actually talk about why they wanted to leave the Union, mentioned slavery like tons of times. It was literally in the drafted Constitution of the South.
Very long document. It also noted a lot of things that we brought up as well.
That's fine. It might have, but slavery was a pretty huge driving factor of that. Also, just looking this up, because I hadn't heard this really quick, the idea that Lincoln wanted to like remove every black person and send them to Liberia, that's not true. He did favor colonization as an option. Yeah, he voluntarily was okay with them doing it, but that was prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. After that, that option was completely dead because of how that passed. I'm sorry, I have to fact check everything white nationalists say because oftentimes you guys misrepresent the fuck out of everything historically. So I'm really like cautious to accept anything you say is true because most of it is like horrendously misrepresented from like 4chan threads or Imager posts.
Right now, you're so lit up that you get all your arguments from Wikipedia. Like, holy shit.
I mean, I'd rather get my arguments from Wikipedia than pull threads from like images copy pasted from like 300-pound white nationalist kids to other 300-pound white nationalist kids. Like,
I'm not that fucking rich, bro. Jesus. 300 pounds. I'm like,
there are so many good things you could focus on, like talking about, like, oh, I want to do this or that, or this is the policy I want, but instead we just LARP as white nationalists. Does it ever feel like pathetic?
He's just jealous he can never be 300 pounds.
I wish I was 300 pounds. I'm getting there though. I'm gonna make it.
Nice. Sorry, remember, it's a debate between Catboy and Destiny, not you and Destiny. If you want to set that up for later, we can do it.
Catboy doesn't have any gas.
I think he's checking his phone for points right now. He's probably got somebody DMing him arguing.
I'm looking at chat. You've probably got fucking chat on your second monitor or something, but I've only got one monitor because I just moved, so
okay.
I'm using this. And also I'm standing.
So like we all agree that there's no way to like get to white nationalism, at least not immediately. So why not talk about policies like in the interim that can actually benefit us all? Like why not do that?
Here's a good question. Who here actually identifies as a white nationalist?
I mean, it's not a good idea even if you are to say that you are. So it's kind of a silly question.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm a white nationalist. I support white sovereignty.
Fair enough.
Okay. Quoting from the Mississippi Articles of Secession, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. But a side issue, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, it was a side issue. They're talking about slavery as a means of production.
When all your production rests on slavery, and slavery is the thing that the North is trying to make illegal, kind of sounds like slavery is your big point.
Why didn't they make it illegal in the North until much later? The Emancipation Proclamation was making all the slaves in the South, which was not controlled at the time, not slaves.
So you're saying that the Emancipation Proclamation didn't make slavery illegal everywhere, it only did it in the South?
No, yeah, that's what it says. Have you not read it?
I mean, it's been a while, but I don't recall it only saying it in the South.
Okay, I feel like I should actually be a moderator here because Catboy's not even an American. It was a mistake of me to even bring up anything related to the Civil War, and you should probably go back to talking about boring things instead.
Oh, because slavery had already been illegal in the North for like 100 years prior. Oh, okay.
Actually, no, it was a oh, god damn it. I'm gonna just get it out. It was a northern state that was the last state to ban. I'm pretty sure it was New Jersey. Actually,
did people in New Jersey actually have states?
Yes,
or have slaves?
South of New Jersey actually had a lot of slaves working on farms. I know. I'm from very, very agricultural place.
Mississippi didn't do this.
Destiny.
Yeah, I don't like. I've studied like all the Nazi historical revisionism, but I haven't gone over like the slavery historical revisionism yet. So, I mean, I guess I'm just reading stuff as I get it. Like generally, almost every single argument that I get regarding this is like horrendously misrepresented.
Well,
So-
Year of greatness with
put it down
destiny
yet,
is
then.
great. Nathan
Why haven't
W.
I Sorry, wait.
He's just
Why haven't I what?
Why haven't you countered the argument yet?
Because generally it's a waste of time. I don't usually waste my time on stuff that there's historical consensus around for like a bunch of internet historians to go back and try to debunk. Like it's like there's so many more interesting like contemporary issues to talk about.
So you're saying it's boring?
No, not really. I'm saying it's pointless, which I guess can be a type of boring. But like, yeah, no, I don't usually like go back to verify like historical consensus. One, because I'm not a historian, and two, because if there's academic consensus around an object, why would I listen to like a LARPer from 4chan try to give me his interpretation of like American history? Like,
I'm from 4chan.
I don't know where you're
Can
from,
you,
but
can you define the term LARP?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
what,
it's better if
live
we
action
start
roleplay? Wait, are you
moving
telling me to
back.
like give you like what do you mean?
Yeah, it's just like you keep using that word.
Yeah, LARPers. They're like people online that have these like big bad ideologies about these radical changes they want to make on the earth, but like in real life, they're just loser nobodies who have done nothing and
You're
will do
saying
nothing.
Online? Now, how can you be live action online?
I don't know. That's a good one.
Amazing!
so stupid.
It's true.
This
It's
is
so
dumb.
true.
Stupid. It's a legitimate concern.
And you know what? You're right, Sargoy. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. Okay, let's try and reject back to Catboy and
Yeah,
Destiny.
you
This is a
guys,
real
you
debate.
guys are the debate.
Mullen,
Yeah.
Mullen,
No, I'm trying
Sure.
to help. I'm trying to help.
Slow down. Let me
please.
make.
We get
Catboy,
pretty sidetracked
what are-
here. yeah.
what
It sounds pretty sad. Wait,
besides-
or yeah, go for it.
Besides race, what is a major modern issue you have a big opinion on?
Well, I think politics is only an issue when it affects the genetic population of a society, because I think it all just stems back to that.
So you're literally a single issue. Race is the only thing that matters to you.
Pretty much. I mean, I think a lot of political systems would work with the right genetic population.
Do you have problems with Nick Fuentes' race? Did that bother you, or?
I mean, he's pretty white, so.
But that's not his genetic background, right? I thought that's what you were more concerned with.
No, it is. It's like he's like a quarter like Latino or something, and the rest of him's like Mediterranean or like.
So
Is it half?
other
Is
parts
it
of
a-
Europe.
Is it okay to be like a quarter? Like, what's the percentage of acceptable rate? Have you like identified if you got the good genes or the bad genes from the quarter? Like, you realize, like you're making fun of me for not understanding race, but you're defending that a guy with the last name Fuentes is white because he's got like 75% European shit. This is so fucking arbitrary.
He's
Like,
more like 95 or some shit because, like Wait, was that I just got
it's just funny to like say that like my line is arbitrary, but you're doing like fucking like race mixing math to try to like get your friend up to a high enough bar to fit your ethno state. Like, it's so fucking stupid.
You've got to draw the line somewhere. Like
No,
the
you don't
SS
have to.
Nips.
The SS drew the line on Jews at like 1/4 Jewish or some shit like that. So, I mean, it seems fine. It's like it's not hard to draw the line to where like Nick would be in, because like I say, it's like the part of him that's like non-white is Latino, and those guys were like raped by Spaniards for generations, so they've actually got like, they're not white, but they've got a decent amount of European in them anyway. So the one part of Nick that's non-white actually has a fair bit of white in it anyway. So Nick's like more than 3/4 white.
Okay, cool story, bro.
Well, you were
Sorry.
saying, you were saying, like,
I don't know what to say to this. Like, are there gonna be fucking like when you go to like when you go to like the fucking like the national like race registry place or whatever in your country, are they gonna have like calculators out there so you can like calculate like what percentage of European ancestry you have so you can fit the bar, or are you just gonna look at somebody and be like,
Israel does it just fine when trying to figure out if you're ethnically Jewish.
sure,
so-
but I'm not Israel, am I? I'm not trying to be. Also, Jewish is way more specific than just white, right?
Right, yeah, you just
There's a lot of different types of Jews, even black Jews. So
There are some different, yeah, but like Ashkenazi, like we can talk about like different types of Jews, but just white is like such a vague fucking word.
All right, let's stop using it. Let's start using the proper terminology from here on out.
Yes.
We're gonna call everyone Nords, Meds, and what's the other one? Fucking Anglos and
Yeah,
Bavarian,
that's
obviously.
Variants, Poles.
Wait.
These are very dumb
Slavs.
groups. You can
Jamie,
put them in.
question
You
from
can
you
just-
from the chat. Are
You can just
Hibernians
say
white?
Indo-Europeans.
Wait, who's white?
Are Hibernians white? The Irish.
I don't even know what a Hibernian. Oh, an Irish
Irish.
person? Yeah, Celts are white
Why?
because they came from Europe. And I mean, look at them. Like,
Oh, they're on the
I mean,
island,
people are just like, how do you even know if someone's white? I mean, like, fucking look at them most of the time. It's like, is their skin like this? Yes. Look at their nose. Does it look like
You know that not all Jew. Wait. So
No.
what about Jewish people that are fully Jewish but look white because they don't have big noses? You know, not every Jewish person has a big nose, right?
Well, yeah, like you could do a DNA test, but I'm just like.
Well,
for
so
the
wait,
most
do you have to
part,
do a
it's
DNA
pretty
test or do you
obvious.
just look at them? What do you mean?
Well, I'm just saying it's like people try to muddy the waters when generally it's pretty obvious, and then it's like in some circumstances, it's like if you wanted to be more specific, yeah, you'd need a DNA test, but.
It's not really that obvious, though. I'm pretty sure that if Fuentes was out roofing instead of making YouTube videos, he'd probably look a lot darker. You'd probably have maybe a little bit of a harder time calling him pure white, right? Like, maybe he wouldn't fit your mathematical model for calculating European ancestry if you'd spent a little bit more time working outside and less indoors on his computer shitposting. But, I mean, I don't know. You're the one drawing the lines here. I don't know. This whole conversation is, like, so stupid to me. Like, none of your plans are ever going to pass in any, like, recognized state. Like, you don't even have, like, a pathway to get any of these policies in place. Like, you don't even, like, I don't know, it just seems so stupid. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say.
That's what they told Hitler.
Yeah, and I mean, that dude killed himself in the bottom of a bunker because he got
But
fucked
he
in the
got
war. So.
political change.
Sure,
Actually,
you know that, like,
CIA
you know that Hitler would kill,
CIA
like,
documents have documented him being alive in Argentina.
yeah, so that's not true,
Brazil.
firstly. Okay,
No, it
Hitler
is.
is super
I'm
dead.
gonna get it right now.
A government institution.
Sorry, going
Yeah,
Mulberry.
so
Yeah,
the
I
C-
thought
so
you
the
were-
CIA
I
so the
thought-
CIA released a report saying that they had talked to one person that claimed that Hitler was alive and they never
They have a
corroborated.
picture of it
No,
there.
they don't. You're
Wait,
lying.
chat.
That's
It's
just
in
not
chat.
true. You're lying.
It
It's
is in
just
chat. It
so
is true,
sure.
in
If anybody
fact,
wants to
of
go
course.
look that up, they can. So if you're
It's
curious,
in chat.
sure. So
It's in chat.
looking at it.
yeah,
I'm looking at it.
I don't know like what randomly you're, but the thing that you're oh my god. Hitler is dead, dude. I'm sorry. Also, most of the people that are white that you're defending would have been killed by Hitler, right? Hitler
this
wanted to
is
kill Polish people. Like Hitler wanted to kill like
I
Serbs.
have a single fact to back that up.
What do you mean? Like the massive amount of Polish people that were murdered by the
Where are all
Germans?
the bodies?
Which ones?
I see their shoes. I don't see their bodies.
Like, you realize, like, even quoting Mein Kampf, like, Hitler talked about killing, that, like, Polish people could never be compelled.
No, I read Mein Kampf. You talked about them stealing jobs. You didn't talk about killing.
It was believed that the Polish people could be Germanized by being compelled to use the German language. The result would have been fatal. A people of foreign race would have had to use the German language to express... Can you speak German?
No, there's multiple translations.
So you
of
can't
Mein
even
Kampf.
speak German, and you're trying to tell...
What
You're trying to
you're
take...
saying
No,
is
you have... So you haven't read Mein Kampf.
there are
You
multiple
haven't read a different
translations of
translation.
Mein Kampf.
You're literally just like all the lefties that haven't read Das Kapital. You haven't read... You haven't. You have...
Technically, there are multiple translations. The Ford translation, which was written by Ford, who of course was a supporter of Adolf Hitler, and there's also the it's the official Nazi translation of it.
You're doing the "we was Kangs" argument, like literally.
No, he's not.
You are. You think that Germans would have been? You think that Nazis would have been cool with all white people? They're not. You are. You Nazis wanted to kill Polish people. They thought they were racially inferior, my dude.
He's talking about the translation for the
I
book.
just
You need
want
to
you to
listen.
read from the Ford. I just want you to read from the Ford translation.
I'm not gonna go and find your like fucking like historical revisionist version of the translation. I'm gonna rely on a guy that can speak, that can actually speak and read German to tell me what it said.
Translation, the official Nazi translation.
I'm good on that. I'm gonna go by like the historical translation from the people that could read German and did the translation. But thank you though.
Like Henry Ford?
Yeah, like the actual Germans who wrote Mein Kampf, the Stalag translation. It's the one that was used by Nazi Germany to give to people who spoke English.
So you're telling me that the translation is so dramatically different in Mein Kampf that he doesn't talk about Polish people being inferior, that a people of a foreign race couldn't learn German and be able to express modes of thought.
I will tell you that people are willing to misrepresent their political opposition. I thought you were aware of these things, Dustin. You were complaining about these things earlier.
Yeah, I am, because you're doing it constantly. Like, I can't even keep up with every dumb thing you're saying. No, I'm not.
Tell me that I'm a we was Kangs thing. I haven't even gotten into British Israelism yet.
You're literally trying to make this argument that Nazis were cool with all white people. That's just not true. There was a very specific idea of what it meant to.
Of course, they were even okay with Italians who are like a quarter white.
If I were to bring in an actual PhD historian to argue with you right now, would you be up for it?
If I got
I don't respect
an
PhDs.
That's what I thought. You're full of fucking shit and you fucking know it. That's what I thought.
Open to any historians that want to join if you want.
This
What's
is between me
what's
and
a
Destiny
better
as the-
authority to appeal to than the Germans that could speak English that were Nazis?
I would
Like,
rather
don't you think
appeal.
they would represent the book like as accurately as the German version, like better than anyone else.
No, because they have a political incentive to misrepresent it. I'd rather find a historian that's studied in that area
Misrepresent their own work? Why would they do that?
to make it more relevant today, so dipshits like you press it off as like they'd be okay with
made
all
it
white
that-
people
it's not
rather
a-
than just a
they
specific
made
type
it
of
as
It's not a
Aryan.
modern translation. It's an original translation from the time period.
Yes.
I'd
think
still
it's
rather
that
get
as
I'd
the other
still rather get a
historian here.
translation from a historian than a Nazi who's more concerned with preserving a political ideology than giving a
That was
tactful
alive
and
at
truthful.
the time.
It's not. It was just representing it. That's I don't know. Whatever. I'm not into this shit.
Yeah, that's
Zach,
okay.
welcome to the gun stream. This is
Hello,
your
thank you very
historian
much.
that Destiny was talking about.
No, I like to talk about the drug issue, Destiny, particularly.
What's up?
Who is this?
I don't know.
Sorry
Drug
to
issue.
nobody. I was wondering what exactly Destiny wants to do when it comes to drugs. Could you explain to me, please?
Who pulled this guy in?
It was Catboy.
Can you?
Oh, okay.
He was like on my dick.
Okay, what specifically would I do about the drug issue?
I need the bathroom.
Wait, I'm
No,
sorry.
particularly when it comes to legalization.
I think that all drugs should be legalized, and then people that have addiction problems should probably be treated as like some form of like mental health issue. I don't think that people that abuse heroin are doing it like on a recreational level. There's probably like a mental issue there, but
But you realize that addiction itself, it doesn't really exist.
what do you mean by that?
In the sense that it's a psychological, it's made in such a way that the people who made it said that they did it because they wanted to relieve sort of psychological guilt on people talking about that particular issue.
I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean by addiction doesn't exist?
There is no objective basis for addiction. You can't map it in the brain.
Of course you can map addiction. We understand like some of the physiological underpinnings of addiction. What do you mean?
You cannot. You ask any basic neurologist, and they'll say you cannot map addiction. The only thing you can map is certain behaviors which people constantly do again and again. Addiction itself, it cannot be. It isn't itself like a problem.
I mean, like everything you're saying just like runs contrary to like all of the. I don't know how to respond. Like, what do you mean? Like, because I can't like find like one neuron in the brain for addiction. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
They don't generally use as a basis. If you ask a neurologist on the issue of addiction, they say that you cannot generally find it within the human brain. It's not something that determines someone's action. Normally, when it comes to people who say they are addicted, they like using the substance. They continuously use it.
wait, what do you mean?
They like using the substance, so they just continuously use it. If they really truly if they really wanted to do it, they could just get off at any time.
Okay, well, I mean that nobody agrees with you, so I don't know how to talk to that. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, what do you think causes addiction?
Who do you mean? I think most times actually.
Chemical addiction isn't a real thing. What?
I don't know.
I'm arguing that itself you cannot map it in the brain. That most people who are addicted, who do use drugs, I mean, who say they're addicted, who do use drugs, you cannot actually.
I mean, like we can literally see different images of like addicted brains. So I don't know what you mean by that.
That's more to do with habits that you continuously do again and again and again. It is not itself.
Even
But we
disregarding
barely
that,
understand the brain to begin with. Like
Yeah, to be
something
fair.
not showing up there doesn't mean that it's not a real thing.
Yeah, and to begin with, there's other physiological effects besides in the brain, like within your body itself, that can result from lack of a substance if you're addicted to it. Like that's not even just brain science, just like basic human biology.
Yeah, what about people that
Doesn't
die
make
from
sense.
like withdrawal? Are they just faking it really hard or what?
Like there's
they're
like
not
heart
fake.
issues, there's blood issues. There's a lot of issues that can result if you don't. If this is, I'm sorry, this is a ridiculous argument, and you're not very compelling as a speaker. I'm gonna be honest with you. You're not even supposed to be in the debate to begin with. So if you don't, I'm gonna give you one final point, then we're gonna kick you out. Okay?
Just keep going. It's fine. There's no point. Just keep me out. If you don't let me speak, then keep me out then.
All right, tell us your final point. Go.
Yeah, I'm
No
giving you one
point. There's no point. You want to kick me out? There's no point.
No, I'm just giving you a chance to have a final say, and then we're gonna move on because you're actually part of the debate here. It's between Catboy and.
I was
Destiny.
well just leave. Bye bye.
All right, he's gone. Okay. So
Sorry about that, guys.
let's get back to. Okay, where do we want to go? Continue on race, Catboy. Are you back with us?
So, Destiny, I heard one time that you practice polygamy. Do you still do that?
My understanding is that polygamy is the taking of multiple wives, which I think is illegal in the United States. So
polyamory, my bad.
Oh,
sorry.
yep, I sure do.
Does your girlfriend ever fuck black guys?
Not to my knowledge, but I mean, if she did, it wouldn't be any different than white people.
But does that mean there's like potentially, or like, I'm just gonna make it guys in general, but potentially black guys have come inside of your girl, and then you put your dick inside of her, and then you get guy cum all over your dick.
So you know that like when cum goes inside of a vagina, it doesn't stay there forever, right?
But like, how frequently are you fucking your girlfriend if like the cum has time to leave?
It's a real good one. For somebody that knew so much about genetics, you know surprisingly little about women, but I guess given your corner of the internet, that's not very surprising.
Well, like, no, I fuck plenty of women.
I'm sure you do.
I don't really need to worry about whose cum was in them last.
Really? Every woman you fuck is a virgin? Is that how that works?
Yeah, wheat fields, brother.
Every yeah, okay. I don't know what that dog whistle was, but okay.
like,
no, like seriously, every single girl you fuck. Wait, every single woman you fucked is a virgin?
This is gayer than like, you know when you kiss a girl, how you kiss all the guys that she's kissed? It's like, this is like that cranked up to 11. You've got a girl that you fucking consistently with other guys come inside of her.
So
I just don't get that.
I'm just
How are you
curious,
okay with
is
that,
every
bro?
girl that you fucked a virgin?
Probably not, but if I'm
So
fucking
you
a girl
fuck.
consistently,
Well, hold
I'm
on.
not
Well, not
consistently
consistently.
getting
So
other
you're
guys
telling me that you
all
fucked
over
a
my
lot
cock.
of girls that probably have had a variety of dicks in them. So you're so much gayer than I am. Holy
Not
shit,
black
that's so
dicks,
gross.
though.
You don't know that?
To be fair.
Well, actually, no. Well, hold on. We need to talk about this scientifically. What if you fucked a girl and a guy's dick was in her, but his dick was in another girl that had a black dick inside of her? Does he transfer is it like homeopathy, dickyopathy? Does it work like 2 or 3 vaginas over? I'm super curious. You seem really well versed in this. How many like dicks over does black cum transfer? Is it like super semen or what, dude?
I don't know, but like when your girlfriend comes home from the club and you're not sure if the pussy's like yours or someone else's, like 5 minutes prior.
First of all, I'm pretty sure I'd know if my girlfriend fucked somebody 5 minutes prior. Now, you wouldn't fucking
Did
a
she
random
tell
girl because you don't.
about it?
Yeah, we talk about our ex relationships all the time. Yeah.
Does she talk to you about?
Do you talk to every single girl you hook up with about all of her prior hookups? No, I'm curious too, because you seem to be like super interested in what goes on inside my girlfriend's vagina. It's really fucking creepy. Holy shit.
No, like
You're really invested in this. This is like a really important story to you. If you want, dog, I can give you her Instagram and you can message her and ask herself. You seem to be really concerned.
Fuck your girlfriend?
Not really. I don't think she'd go for your type, but I mean, like, if you want to talk to her, you could ask her about the different things that's been inside of her vagina. You seem to be super invested in the outcome of this conversation.
Fuck your girlfriend, bro. Fuck your girlfriend.
I don't think she fucks guys that wear cat t-shirts, but I mean, I don't know, dude. Maybe you'll get really lucky. Who knows?
I think I'll surprise you, bro. What's her Instagram?
I think at this point, I don't think you'd surprise me at all, but
But I don't know. I'd have to ask how many black dicks have been in her first.
I'm so curious how many black dicks have been in girls that you fuck. You've probably touched more black,
zero.
but you don't know that, do you? Because you don't date them.
No, I ask them.
Oh, and you think every single girl is honest with you when she tells you if she's fucked black guys or not?
Yeah, because I go, have you fucked a black guy?
Yeah, you don't
You
know.
lying to me? Nah!
So, like,
usually
from a
for
probability
people,
point
so-
of view, if you're a super mega chad that's fucking all these girls, and I'm locked down in some one beta cuck relationship, there's a good chance that you fucked more black dicks indirectly than I have. So not only are you gayer than me, you would also be like more of a race mixer than I am as well. That's
I
crazy.
only fuck racist chicks.
When you pull your
no
dick out of a
black
chick at the
dicks
end of
on
the
my
day,
cock.
do you ever look down and see if your dick is turning black? Do you think that's possible? Do you ever get worried about that?
I hope not.
So
But probably not. I don't think that's how it works.
really.
You kind of seem like you're grasping. Are you like trying to avoid the topic? Of,
You think I'm the one
your
grasping at
girlfriend's
straws when
Instagram
you're
app?
super concerned about
You
dicks
gonna
that
give me
that
no
have or
app or
haven't been
not?
inside my girlfriend's vagina? I'm the one
You
grasping.
seem to be backtracking on it.
I'm not backtracking. You're just cringy as fuck right now. You're trying super hard to get an own on me. You're standing there giggling nervously, looking for chat for some sick own, while
No,
realizing
I'm
that
waiting for
every
you to
single
give me a
negative thing
fucking
you're saying about
Instagram
me,
card.
I could turn back on you a million times over.
You
Because you
keep
have
avoiding
no
the
idea.
topic. You were like,
You
"You
have
want me to give
no
you a
idea.
socials?" You're not
Because
giving me a socials,
you're going to sit
bro.
here right now and you're going to tell me that every girl's been honest with you about how many dicks that she sucked or fucked, but we all know that at the end of the day, you're probably LARPing with chat talking about how girls are all lying whores, so you have no idea what type of
This
black
seems
people
like
chicks have
a
fucked.
Massive cope for the fact that
I'm reading
girl
cope in your
has
chat too.
more
Yep, I see that in your chat
miles-
too.
your girl
LeMayo
has
cope,
more
LeMayo
miles
cope.
of cock in her.
If you
the
want,
vast
we can just have like
majority of women.
we can just have 60 seconds time. I could read your chat for you. I don't need you to read it off to me, my dude. Like I've got it open here. Like
What? That's not what chat's saying. You're talking shit.
I'm not talking shit. You started the conversation off asking me about what goes in my girlfriend's vagina, which is already really creepy. But then you forgot the fact that if you fucked any girl ever, the chances of you coming in contact with something that came in contact with a black dick is probably higher than me, unless you want to admit that I fuck more chicks than you do.
Hey, given that
Yeah.
your
What are we
girl's
pivoting to
like-
now?
Given that your girl fucks like just whoever, not just you, probably more other people. How do you know that your kid's yours? Did you do a DNA test?
Well, given that my current girlfriend is not the mother of my kid, I don't really have to worry about that.
So were you not in a
Nope, I wasn't.
swingers relationship
Nope.
prior? Oh, okay. Does your kid like you?
Yeah, we get along pretty well.
How often do you see him?
Often enough. I talk to him pretty often. I go down to visit him. Was just there a while ago for his birthday.
You're not being very specific. Like once.
I don't think I need to be ultra specific to you about like these aspects of my personal life. I'm good. If you follow my Instagram though, I was just there last month hanging out with him for his birthday. But
So you last saw him a month ago.
you seem to be really invested in my personal life. Do you?
Hold up, we just got a message from the chat. Everyone wants to say happy birthday to Destiny's kid. Everyone says happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Birthday Destiny's kid. But
Also
it's
from
like,
the chat with the Ninjet, would Destiny slurp out another man's cum if his GF asked? From someone asked. Someone asked that.
Money.
I don't know. I guess we'd have to talk it over first, huh? Depends
Like,
on how
yeah,
black the
do
guy
you-
was, I guess, huh?
do you give your girlfriend head?
I
a
don't
good
know.
question.
Have you ever given any girl head before?
No, never.
Never?
That's gay
Oh,
as
good
fuck.
job. Damn.
Catboy, haven't you had sex with a dude?
Fuck you, guy. in the
Wait,
arse
Catboy,
is a trap.
do you kiss girls?
Yeah,
Ooh. How do you know black dicks haven't been in those mouths?
because again, I only fuck racist chicks.
Really? Okay.
Mm.
Was the trap racist as well, or
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is basically like,
No stakes,
this is
really.
every conversation with a white nationalist ever. I don't know. I think it's pretty funny. It feels like I'm back in high school again, but I'm glad that this is like this is the heavy artillery of white nationalism right here. Is people asking about my girlfriend's vagina, and I guess like the last time I saw my kid is good stuff. I guess good policy debate.
I like
So,
how that's been the greatest point of contention right here. But I think we knew from the start this wasn't going to be a very policy-heavy debate to begin with. But
Sure, I guess. But I mean, like, if somebody's gonna go in on me personally, I wish the insults would be at least a little better. Like, rather than just reading shit off of chat. Like, you're not very good at
I'm
this.
not reading. Chat's not suggesting this. I'm a good
You're-
streamer.
you're like-
I look
you're-
to see how the crowd's responding.
So
to
I
what I'm
understand that,
saying,
like,
but-
doing what you do, maybe you're not in a lot of social situations, but like a guy rocking back and forth on his feet, nervously giggling, looking into his phone looks really bad. Like, I'm cringing on your behalf
autistic,
right now.
Faggot. Like,
You're,
relax.
whoa,
Oh,
calm
no,
down.
dude.
fuck, sorry, I
Calm
feel
down
bad,
on the
I feel
bad
bad.
words. Not, yeah, wow. But okay, yeah, so you're autistic. Well, then you are socially awkward. Then I am cringing for you, I guess.
Yeah, no, but like chicks see it as like just confidence or something because I'm attractive. So
Rocking back and forth, giggling nervously, looking down at your phone, chicks interpret that as confidence?
I mean, it's not nervous. I don't know. You interpret this as nervous? Like, look at you. You're fucking hunched over in your computer. Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to speak into my microphone because it's in front of my...
This is you. This is me standing up here, and I'm the nervous one.
Hi.
Like, you're the fucking. Look at your posture.
Yeah,
versus
I've got to put my
mine.
mouth in front of my microphone. I don't wear like a
Why don't
gamer
you-
headset.
You make more money than me. Why do you have a mic that forces you to like fucking hunch over like you got fucking scoliosis, cunt?
I don't think I have scoliosis, but
No,
normally
but
it's because I'm playing
your
games when I play.
posture looks fucked, cunt. That's my
My
point.
posture's okay.
And
I'm
you're
doing
trying
okay.
to talk
I'm
shit
real.
about mine.
I'm not talking shit about your posture. I'm talking shit about your mannerisms right now. You're rocking back and forth and nervously giggling into your phone.
Posture's a part of your mannerisms, bro.
Okay. Do you feel your neck
So-
warping there a little bit, having to look down so much?
Not really. It's just like down like. So look, that's like perfect neck posture right there.
Yeah. Can you put your
Down a little
back to the wall and then look down and then have the back of your head touch the wall still?
What? Wait.
Can you stand with your back straight to the wall, put your head back to the wall, but look down without having to pull your head forward?
So look down.
Oh wait, you can't really do it. You don't have good neck mobility, my dude. You've been looking down at screens way too long. No, you can't. Oh man, dude, your neck is total. It's your C4 and C3 vertebrae are totally fucked. That's what happens when you look down at screens too much. I can send you a link later. Don't worry, my dude. You'll correct it. I'm sure those good European genes will help you. I like that I have you doing like fucking calisthenics though in your room, fucking walking up to your wall and shit. Can I get you to do handstands for me next, or?
Oh, you got Cammy to fucking stand against the wall. Yeah, you're just fucking controlling the whole situation, cunt. You're like the fucking mastermind behind this, sitting in your. You're like one of those. You know, in Fallout New Vegas, there's the guy, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. House, I'm the big fucking man on the screen," and then you see him, and he's like, "Oh." It's like kind of you know. Well, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, you're really hip with the statistics, right? So you know how absent fathers tend to create like criminals, you know, like bad kids and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that.
How often does a dad have to see the kid for
RXXP
that
is
to
the
not
king of
be,
weebs.
like an issue?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. But having not a father in the household is probably only one factor among many. Having a father not in the household is probably also going to be heavily associated with like having no money or being really poor too. Do you think my kid's going to grow up to be a criminal? Are you super concerned about him? That's so sweet, dude. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I am kind of concerned about it because it seems like he doesn't see his dad very much.
Yeah.
Last saw him on his fucking birthday, Christ.
Looking for another one there? Maybe you'll find one that sticks.
No,
I feel like the guy at the end of Eminem where it's like the same like two words being said. We've got poly relationship and then abandoned kid. Short. Some people, you haven't called me short yet. I guess you can do that if you want.
I mean, I already said you got horrible posture.
Okay,
and you look
that's kinda like calling me
meek and
short.
Frail.
Are you ever
I feel
worried
like-
that like maybe you should have come up with something new for this? It's kind of like a roast you didn't prepare for. Or I mean, if that's what you wanted this to be, shouldn't
No,
you have prepared some
I
better
literally
lines?
didn't prepare for this whatsoever. Like,
Okay.
I was told this was on, and yeah.
Okay. I mean, like, I've heard better insults from socialists against me at this point. Usually, like, the right could at least mean better, but I'm being pretty let down right now. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, you seem hurt by it.
Oh, yeah. Look, Adam Victor in your chat. I can just read him directly for you. Tell him he sucks at piano. That would be a sick burn. There you go. You could do that one.
I'm reading Chad Fit Cammy versus Scale Pale.
Posture check
Skinny
chat.
Pale Destiny.
Back straight,
No,
don't
that's
slouch, or
tiny.
Krampus
That's
will
tiny.
steal your
Oh,
kids
that's
this
tiny,
coming
yeah.
Christmas.
Okay. Well, hey, listen. Do we have any other topics for this, or are we good?
Are there other topics you really care about, Cammy? Are there still some aspects of race you want to cover, or
Do I need to throw more gas on the fire?
Your
Yeah, we've been
kids
going
will
for like
grow
a
up to
gas-
bully
gas
this
wars.
dumbass.
We've taken.
What do you think about hate speech, Destiny? Like, are you for free speech, or do you not like that?
I mean, like, discrimination against classes I'm generally not cool with. So, like, a business saying, like, no black people allowed, it's probably not a good thing. In terms of hate speech, I don't really care much about hate speech. I don't like people that spread, like, misinformation or, like, grossly negligent information, but I don't really care much about, like, hate speech.
Sorry, going.
Finally.
So, who defines what's grossly negative in? Wait, did you say negative or negligent? Sorry,
Negligent.
whatever the fuck.
Gross
Okay.
negligence, so, like,
So-
misinterpretation of sources and stuff.
So, who defines what a misinterpretation of a source is?
I mean, it
And
would
how
depend on
would
the
you police
platform.
that?
Yeah, it depends on how you police it. I don't really know how I would. I don't really have, like, a strong stance related to that.
Okay. So, you think it's a good idea, but you have no idea how to implement it.
I guess kind of like you and white nationalism, huh?
Guess so.
The only difference is that's not the center point of my entire identity. It's just like a small thing that I kind of feel about, but I don't. It's not really a big part of what I argue.
I mean, it affects you a lot though, right? Because your whole job's like talking on the internet.
I mean, I guess, but it's not like we're about to implement like language policing stuff from the federal government anytime soon. So I don't generally talk about that type of
There's
stuff.
like de facto language policing stuff. It's not written into law, but there's a lot of it in terms of like policies on websites, right?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, those are private enterprises. So if you're a capitalist, you should support them being able to have whatever language policies they want, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the law's kind of fucked right now because they have it both ways. So they have the protection of a publisher. I mean, they have the protection of a platform, but the option to decide what is and isn't on their site, like a publisher.
Yeah, that's good. We wouldn't want to hold social media platforms liable for information posted on their site because then no social media platform could ever survive. Of course, it's kind of like YouTube not being held liable for copyright infringing material.
Exactly, but then they end up like YouTube has pretty much monopoly on, say, video sharing.
Well, if we believe in the power of the free market, shouldn't another company just step up and outcompete them?
Well, it's kind of hard because we don't really have a free market when the government can be bought by lobbying and shit like that by, I mean, something as big as Alphabet.
So do you think that all internet like content hosters should be forced to host every bit of content that somebody tries to post on their site?
Sorry, what was the question?
Do you think that content hosts on the internet, like YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, should be forced to host all content on their site?
I think if they want the protections of a platform, yeah, they need to just host anything that's not illegal.
So if somebody wants to just post like fuck women like a million times on Facebook or whatever, Facebook should be forced as a platform to pay for the servers and to pay for the storage and everything for that account to exist. They shouldn't have a right to say like, I don't really want this person on my platform.
I mean,
Yes.
is the issue there like what's being said or the data being taken up? Because if the
Anything. I
issue's
mean,
the
like you're a
data,
private
then-
company. Like you should have a right to like, what if somebody's harassing users on your platform? It's not illegal. Should you be allowed to ban them? What if somebody's shit posting a lot on your platform? Should you be allowed to shit post or should that?
Yes.
Yes.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. I'm not in favor of like compelling companies, private companies to tell them that they have to host certain material. I don't know. I just think it's a really weird thing to do from a private enterprise point of view.
I know this is a weird question, but it's like a big fucking meme around my parts.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do a troll face?
No, I'm good.
Why not? It's just a silly face, Destiny. Like, lighten up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I try to only stick to memes past like 2012, I guess.
Oh, bro, you're just like, no fun. Fuck.
I try to make sure all of my memes are at least older
Yeah.
than SOF or whatever the fuck you guys have over there before I do that shit.
It's like, it's old enough now to be like ironically funny, dude.
Kind of like white nationalism.
Well, that's not funny. That's serious. That's
Yeah.
serious business.
We got a question in the chat. Quick question here. Can private enterprises really be considered private if they are fulfilling a public utility service?
Well, it depends on if you consider like social media to be a public utility. There's interesting arguments for that, but I mean, I don't know. Do you want the government to nationalize like social media? Do you think that if Hillary Clinton was president, that she'd do a better job at curating content on Facebook and Twitter than like Zuckerberg or Jack or whatever, Dorsey, whatever the fuck the guy's name is? Like, I mean, I guess you could do that, but I don't know. There are interesting arguments for it, to be fair, but I don't think they're going to be presented very well here.
I just had a question. I just wasn't arguing it.
Oh yeah, no, like there are very interesting arguments about socializing or making like public utilities things like social media because they control so much of the public discourse that like if you effectively ban somebody from like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you've almost effectively removed their voice from public discourse, which is pretty scary given what the First Amendment is supposed to be about. So there are interesting arguments there. I'm just not entirely sure how the implementation would look. I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it.
So,
Another question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
I had another question from the chat. Someone was asking, there's been companies like MasterCard or Visa that have denied people payment options if they express certain opinions online. Do you think banks and other financial institutions should be able to refuse service to people?
No, actually, I think that I don't know where you would draw the line, but when you see like registrars not providing like DNS services to people with like hateful opinions, that gets really weird to me, because at that point it feels like you can run that back really hard. Like, let's say for instance you tweeted out once, in 2013, fuck black people. Should I be able to find like the leasing group that owns your apartment and have them kick you out, or should I be able to contact your ISP and have you like that? I don't know. That seems really weird to me. If you want to be banned off like a specific platform like Facebook or Twitter, I think right now I'm okay with them having control over that. But running that back to like registrars or banks or ISPs, that I don't know. That feels
What about
really
something like PayPal or MasterCard?
Yeah, like payment processors. No, I don't think so. Because it also does this weird thing where it feels like you implicitly endorse every kind of speech that's being used on your platform or that's being paid for by your platform that you haven't banned. Like if PayPal hasn't banned anybody from like for anything, then fine. That's just PayPal's stance. If they start banning like say white nationalists or whatever, well, okay. Well, what about like this group of people that like, do you support like pedophiles or incest lovers or whatever other crazy shit, like because you didn't ban them, it puts you in a weird area. I don't think payment processors should be in the business of like banning like who uses their stuff, unless they're like breaking the law, like related to financial transactions or some shit.
Because then they could obviously be held liable if there's illegal shit being bought.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then you could pressure them like that.
Are you aware that actually has happened frequently with a couple of people?
I know that PayPal has done it. PayPal did it for a lot of sex work as well, I think, too. And I know that like registrars have done it. I think even did Cloudflare do it to like the Daily Stormer site? Yeah. That I don't know. That feels like
Daily Stormer and HM.
Yeah, I don't know. That feels weird to me. So does that mean that like Cloudflare endorses the speech of every other person that they haven't banned? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay, would you? I guess that's the questions I have from the chat. Would you be in favor of a law forbidding something like that from happening?
Would I be in favor of a law preventing stuff like that from happening? I don't know. I'd have to think about that a lot. I'd have to think about I'd have to think about that a lot. Because like technically, if a registrar wants to deplatform someone, I mean, they should have the right to do so, I guess, right? It's services that they're offering. I don't know if I'd be in favor of a law that says you're not allowed to ban something. That just seems like laws that compel service are typically things that make me like, you have to have a really good reason for it. And I don't know if I feel like a law should exist there. Yeah. But I could probably be
a registrar, but like specifically for like payment institutions like PayPal or MasterCard, if you're a financial institution, should they be allowed to refuse people service because of their political beliefs? Should that be would a law be in place to prevent that be acceptable to you?
I'm hesitantly saying that they shouldn't be allowed to. I haven't thought through all the ramifications of what a law on that would look like. That's why I'm not sure. I guess I kind of feel like you could draft a law that says that. I don't feel strongly one way or another. Like a good argument could sway me to one or the other. Yeah. I would just have to think about what are the ramifications of that. Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of my questions from the chat then.
Sure.
Yo, would you do a Pog Champ? That's still a relevant meme, right?
No, I'm good.
I want to do Troll Festival and Pog Champ.
Amazing.
Chat's wondering why I was butting in earlier.
Hey, I got a question for Catboy here, actually. Just post a photo. Are you in the Discord at all right now? Can you see your Discord call?
Me? I can.
This is for Catboy, actually.
Wait, so what do I need to look at?
I'm going to post a photo. Could you tell me if this person is or isn't white based on their features?
Is it Venti?
Jesus fucking Christ, what is that thing? I mean, that thing just looks so dysgenic, you've just got to, remove it from the gene pool regardless. There's race check, and then there's physiognomy check, and this definitely fails the latter.
That's Gahul.
That's me. Someone asked me to post that, so...
He is pure Irish ancestry, I believe. But
this is what a pure Irish man looks like, just so you know. So if that's not white to you on first glance. Okay, that's all my shit posting questions out of the way. That's good.
So where do you draw the line of what is or isn't white? Like a quarter? Like would say Brittany Venti be considered white? With what is she, like a third black or something? At least from her 23andMe.
I mean, fuck yeah. At the moment, we don't have anything, so if you drew it at, a quarter, that would be, more granular is better, but, then you
Hey guys,
What?
Flamenco wants to get on. I don't know why, but fuck it.
Yeah, flamenco's been like I've.
Before you get him on, I know I'm supposed to be in the doghouse here, but if I have Tiny's ears still, I have a question from the chat. What's your favorite Toho character?
He has you muted.
Wait, no, I have him turned on. What's my favorite what?
Toho
character.
And why do you hate the Jews?
My favorite Togo character?
Toho.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Toho Project. Yeah, you're a gamer, yeah?
Yeah, but I don't know what Toho Project is. Is this like a name? Is this like a name?
Well, did you just say, is it like a meme? I guess you could say that. It's like, it's a pretty old thing there.
I'm
The
surprised you
game.
don't know what Toho is.
Let me get you the
It's not a meme. It's a Japanese indie game series. Okay, how about Kogasa? Can I say that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
Well,
He picked Togasa.
hello, Flamenco. Welcome to the gun stream.
Oh,
What's your
gosh.
question?
Oh, I just had a question for Destiny, but I don't know if.
Yeah, I know. I've been asking it too.
Yeah, what's up?
Well, no, I have a very specific question because of people that used to be in his community. I'm just. God, the fucking
Can we
the
turn off
fucking
the fucking
drops.
sound effects for a
Yeah,
minute?
holy shit.
If you just right click on him, you can turn it down, or yeah, maybe quit it for now for a little bit, Carl. But, okay,
I just have a quick question. When you guys excised Vaush from your Discord specifically, there was like allegations that he was compiling docs for like certain people that he didn't like. Was that something that turned out to be true, or was that something that turned out to be unfounded? Because I got like this weird guy who like spurgs out in my Discord from time to time and says that like he offered $250 for like logs of my Discord. Is this something that he would do? Because at this point I'm dealing with two like pathological liars, so I have no idea who to trust.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like reveal too much about like the different things that like my people know in my community, but like I have a
Right.
couple people that I very much trust to find information like that about other people, and I have never in my life heard anything about Vaush doing anything related to doxing ever. It sounds completely and totally fabricated. I've never heard that in my entire life.
Well, I've seen logs of him like specifically intimating that he had like one of those chicks' informations in like an attempt to shut her up. So that's why I wanted to check.
Nope, all of that was related to like public Twitters and stuff, or the logs are doctored. I've never seen any credible stuff of him, and I hate this guy. So like if I saw it, I would fucking shout it from the rooftops, but I've never in my life heard anything about Vaush doing anything related to doxing.
All right, fair enough. Just wanted to check. Oh, also, just as a little shit posting thing, I don't think that you really have a place to start commenting on people's complexion. That's all I can say. Peace out.
I mean, commenting on people's complexion. Wait, what does that mean?
Well, you were going on about how Fuentes would have a darkened complexion if he like worked outside, wasn't on his computer. I don't really think you have much room to talk about that, buddy.
I'm not trying to race test
pretty
people.
pale.
Wait, what do you
Yes,
mean?
yes, I am calling him pale. Yes.
Well, but I'm not trying to race test anybody, so that's the difference, right?
It's not about race. It's about him not having a tan.
Well, I mean, you were banting on him about not having a tan. So
I was
saying,
banting on the
really-
fact that he wouldn't be white if he went out and had a tan, so he
Yeah,
wouldn't.
you were going on about how if he was outside working instead of playing on his computer and stuff. So
You understand that I stream video games 10 hours a day. Do you think I'm going to sit here and pretend that I go outside and like roof? Like I don't understand. Do you think this is an own on me?
No, I was just saying that you were kind of like shit posting on him on that one. I don't know.
I'm not
It's
shit.
just-
First of all, I don't even think
it was just a really like weird attack to do. I don't know.
it wasn't an
I
attack
don't
on
really have a
Fuentes. It was
problem.
an attack on this guy. I mean, like I can walk you through the joke if you need me to, but
Let's explain the joke in perfect detail, word for word, bit by bit, until it's no longer funny.
yeah. I mean, if you want me to walk you through it, I can do that. But I think most people got the point.
Okay. There you go then. All
Okay.
right. Peace out, guys.
Yeah, you say hi to Ralph for me, Flamenco.
I will.
What's your username?
Cheers.
on YouTube?
I don't have a KaiTube.
Okay,
You should. It's a great
what
platform.
nickname are you using?
I'm not using any nickname. I'm watching this on Destiny's thing.
Oh fuck. Never mind then.
You should watch the gun stream. It's fun.
Nah,
We
I'm
play
good. I
Impractical
just
Jokers.
I'm muting them for a sec. If he really wanted to go into me on my complexion, I thought he was going to make an acne joke because I have a big fucking pimple on my fucking face right now. But thank God he didn't go that route. So we would have really been on then.
Hit himself by the looks of it.
He was talking.
Sorry,
to his
fuck,
stream.
my thing got cut off for a second. I was
He was
unmuting
talking
it.
to his stream.
I see,
Alright.
I see.
Also, I will say this, Destiny, you have good taste. Seth is a great video creator on YouTube.
Okay, thanks.
Peace out.
Seth? Who?
I don't know. I
What's-
now I'm wondering if Seth is a
Oh,
white
Seth
nationalist, and I
Seatosh.
didn't know it. Fuck.
No, Seth Seatosh. No, Seth Seatosh is Jewish, dude.
I don't know, man. I don't know anymore about anything. Oh boy.
No, Seth Seatosh is like he literally said that his family was like kicked out of their land for being Jews, so he's pretty Jewish.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't shit posting there, buddy.
Nah, I think Seth is telling the truth.
I feel
Who
like I've
cares?
lost a lot of high frequency hearing. I feel like I'm missing a really big dog whistle right now. I'm pretty sure I am, but that's all
Jesus
good.
Christ!
No, Seth is
not a dog
legitimately
whistle.
Jewish. I'm
It's a-
being
it's
100%
not a
like
dog
trying to be as
whistle.
blunt as possible.
People, I need to add more irrelevant facts.
Destiny, I don't think you can really like complain about
Dude.
people trying to like insert
Dude,
like weird like
Okay,
double
so-
meanings on stuff when like you
Okay.
Too much.
double back.
Delta,
on
wait.
it.
You're
I
live on
double
the
back, dude. I'm the most
Ghost-
blunt, clear person at everything I say.
Yeah,
What do you
I
mean?
know, and I know that you think that, but I don't think that's entirely true, fam.
What am I not
So-
blunt or clear on? Like, we literally just
I
had
don't
a
know, you were just
conversation about
trying
my
to
girlfriend's
shit-talk people
vagina.
Who, like spend time inside on their computers, and it's like, oh, if maybe it was roofing. It's like, oh no, I was just actually like saying like, oh, this is like actually an own on the person because of like race test things or something. It's
That
like,
so
I-
okay. I'm
I-
sorry.
I-
You really don't understand this.
So,
So the joke earlier was
oh,
this
okay.
guy was saying that he could figure out that Nick Fuentes was really of European descent because he looked white. And I countered that with, well, if Nick Fuentes spent more time outside and looked more Hispanic, maybe you wouldn't think of it. That was the joke. The
yeah,
joke
that's not
was
what
to
you said though.
that was more or less what I said. Yeah.
Yeah, it was more or less what you said. It wasn't what you said though, fam. It was like like slap at him doing stuff on computer when you do the exact
Oh my
same
God,
thing.
you're having a lot of trouble
Oh
with
my
this.
God, that loudness! What the hell?
Thank you, Starboy.
Jeez, my God.
In our time of
He's
need,
All right,
saving
lads.
the stream.
So just a moment, guys. I'd like to introduce myself.
Why are we taking callers?
So
I don't know. It's a
Oh, I just
clusterfuck
want,
stream
like I
at this
said, like I
point.
said, I just wanted on for that, and then I got like dragged into it. Okay, you guys have a wonderful night. Peace out.
All right, later, Flamenco.
Yep. Oh, also, Destiny had a base view on not on banks not censoring people. I think that the
yeah, I think that was one of the things we all agreed on. Honestly,
Actually, I would ask Destiny, would you be okay with a provision that would bar platforms from like removing things that, as long as it's not illegal, as long as they're receiving safe harbor protections? Since
Wait,
like a lot of these
platforms?
content creators do. Like YouTube
platforms.
specifically has like safe harbor provisions, since they're not considered like a publisher.
Frick.
So
you be okay?
safe harbor provisions have less to do with like people try to make this like about editorializing content and more to do with copyright law. Like safe harbor doesn't exist to give you benefits from the government. Safe harbor exists to protect you from other attacks from the government. Like it's a fundamentally different thing.
Yeah, but it also stops you
Yeah.
from being held liable for having stuff that's illegal that somebody else uploaded until you like remove it.
Yeah, which is good, but that shouldn't have anything to do with who you can ban or not ban on a platform. Like we don't want content providers to be held liable for copyright infringing material. It would destroy every single content host in the world.
Yeah, but if they're directly deciding what does and doesn't go on, then they stop being a open platform and they start being like a publisher.
No, they're not a publisher at all. It's just not by any definition of the word. Like the people that upload for them aren't employed
If
by
they're
them.
curating the content that they want specifically, then absolutely they are.
Banning certain types of content does not equal curating content. Those are two fundamentally different things.
Yeah, it wouldn't be if it was actually like administered non-arbitrarily, but you know that it is, right?
What, DMCA?
No, I'm talking about in terms of like what they do and don't allow, in terms of like any sort of violation of TOS, since it's like largely a blanket term to just say, oh, well, we don't like this person specifically, we're going to ban them. A very specific example was a YouTuber named John Swan that did like a breakdown of like somebody's forehead in a very similar way that like another YouTuber did, and he got hit with a community guideline strike for it because this individual apparently has some pull at YouTube.
I mean, if somebody's getting somebody, first of all, I'm highly suspect of the way that you're presenting that story. I'm sure it's not true.
No,
But
I can
even-
bring you.
Sure.
I can show you. The,
I'm sure
video
you can
and
show me
then
whatever.
show
But
you the
even
video
if
is
that,
showing up side by side.
if I assume that the facts of the case you've given me are true, if that's all the video was and the guy was banned, then that just sounds like a power tripping mod or an abuse of power connections. Like I don't think that has anything to do with safe harbor or editorializing anything or whatever. Like it sounds to me like
Right,
you're
but would you
referencing
not-
vaguely some like
would you
phrenology
not
video
say
or
that, like-
something, but. It is, isn't
Dude,
it?
you
Yeah,
need to
that's why
stop
you're
being-
laughing.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
it really was. The chick is Scottish, dude.
Okay.
No one, you do realize no one takes phrenology seriously, right?
I mean, these people earlier were arguing that slavery wasn't the reason why the Civil War happened, so I have no fucking idea what's taken seriously
Well, I mean,
anymore.
like, they argued about it in a weird way. It wasn't like the ethics of slavery is the reason why the North decided, we need to go in and free all these people. It was economic reasons. Slavery was a
like
part
the
of it, but it was
economics of
economic
owning
reasons of
slaves, yes.
slavery. Exactly, but it wasn't any sort of like moralistic fucking argument that like people tell each other in fucking middle school.
This idiot is parroting a
If you guys
video
don't
of
mind,
upper
I'd like
echelon.
to change the topic real quick.
Do you think that the main reason that the North wanted the abolition of slavery was because of like some sort of moralistic reason?
I don't know. I don't think it was a bunch of philosophers getting together and debating normative ethics. No. But
Okay.
I mean, like, if you want to say it was an economic reason, sure. But the economics
it was largely economic. Yeah,
the economics of slavery. It was about slavery.
Yeah, exactly. The
Sure.
economics of slavery.
Yes.
Not,
Okay,
not
cool.
slavery, not the institution itself. It was the economics of it. Exactly.
Yeah, the economics relating to the institution of slavery. Yeah.
Right, but it wasn't about the ethics of it.
Sure. Okay.
All right, so just making sure you know.
Okay. Yeah. I would never. I don't know if any wars are started for ethics reasons. Like, I'm pretty sure all of them boil down to like economic things at the end of the day when people are starving or can't get fed or being oppressed.
There's like a fervor if you're like
Delta,
unprovokably
wait, buddy.
attacked.
I'm gonna
you're like
remove you until this is over.
there's like a position, I guess, if they're like attacked unprovoked, like the U.S. during Pearl Harbor, because like I think only 60% of the people pre-Pearl Harbor didn't really want to get involved in the war. But like after Pearl Harbor, then I guess that would be a moralistic reason because there was like a national demand for like retribution.
I guess if you call that moralistic, sure, but like being attacked by another enemy and then feeling the need to retaliate because they've literally bombed like one of your most important Pacific bases, like that sounds like not just
the
moral,
public support for it is more of a like kind of moralistic retribution one, I would say.
And you think that public support for and against slavery had nothing to do with the moralistic or religious reasons for it?
I mean, how many of the people in the North were like hardcore abolitionists?
Well, like it was a pretty big movement, right? Like the Second Great Awakening in the 20s and 30s was like a huge thing that like started to have a lot of these groups, these religious groups especially, like going through like tons of different social reforms. Like some were related to women's rights, some were related to African American rights. A lot of them like were like, fuck, slavery needs to go now. Like, yeah, it was like a big social thing in the United States.
Yeah, but how many members and like how many of them were like because you would think that these groups would have member lists too, though, right?
If you're asking me for a specific list of people or a specific number of people, I can't give you that number, my dude. I'm sorry.
I'm not asking you specifically, but like, what would you guess like the percentage, I guess, would be that have like this moral abhorrence to slavery, and how many like actually advocated for that in terms of their like,
I mean, in the North,
positions?
if I had to guess, I'd say probably over 50%.
I think most people don't really give a shit about morality, and it's more just a cost-benefit analysis to them. Like, they'll go with whatever moral stance is going to make life easier for them personally.
Well, definitely the people that are involved in the day-to-day politics and like are like hardcore advocating for certain policy decisions. I mean, then again, like the North was kind of like, well, we're gonna just keep on going along to go along until it like ran to a head, and then the South succeeded. Because they were completely willing to just like let the can get kicked down the road until things. Wait, what? The system of bringing states in two at a time to like appease the North and South. What specific event stopped that? I can't remember.
I don't know if you're asking me.
I'm just asking if anyone else knows.
What'd you ask?
Hey, I'm Latvian. My extent to slavery goes pretty much back to the wire, so yeah. Don't ask me.
I mean, I think I don't know. Because I guess and then I guess you'd have to ask how many people are actually like in favor of slavery in the South, because there wasn't like a high percentage of slave owners in terms of like per capita free residents of the South.
Yeah, but you don't need to be a slave owner to be in favor of other people in your state owning slaves.
I mean, it would limit their job opportunities, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. That's not how.
Non-slave owners were mostly against slavery because one, it affected their job opportunities, but two, they were actually forced to catch slaves as well. There was like some government program.
Wait, then why did they march off to war to defend the minority of slave owners?
That's because the argument is probably that the war wasn't actually about the morality of slaves.
Wasn't their
It's also
economy heavily
probably-
dependent on it, and that's why?
Well,
at
if their
least the
economy was
local
heavily dependent
governments-
on it, then it sounds like they were probably in favor of it if they were in favor of maintaining
Yeah.
their economy.
Plus, your average Southerner was probably inundated with like a lot of propaganda of the North coming to invade them, even if it wasn't necessarily true, because the North fired the first shots, I think, right?
Yes.
Or the South did. Like
Nope.
that's why you still have like hardcore people in the South labeling it the War of Northern Aggression and stuff, even though like I
attacked the first fort, but technically that fort belonged to the South. I forget, but the North fired first.
I'm
Technically, they took the fort.
Okay.
okay.
I don't know. I've always heard the South was the one that fired the first shot, but if it was like a already previously occupied fort that like technically belonged
Yeah,
to the South, maybe like
technically the North owned that fort, but the South was occupying it. It's a dichotomy.
This
Yeah.
is gay. Destiny, what's your end goal? Like, so I know you're interested in incremental policy change that's actually, something that you could reasonably expect to make happen. But obviously that's working towards something. So where does it end? What are the higher ideals motivating the changes?
But, my higher order ideals, like, are you asking like what my like fundamental moral position is, or just like what I would want like an end state of the world to look like, or?
Yeah.
I think the latter, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because as like changes start being implemented, maybe things don't turn out the way, like I'm very incrementalist because it's hard to look past the first major policy. So for instance, I might make the argument that like, I think the concept of a genderless society would be cool, where like men and women like adhere to different traits and they don't like hardcore like align themselves on some gender spectrum. But maybe it turns out that people actually derive like a great amount of pleasure and satisfaction from that. Like personally, like I like women. I like the way they look and the way they feel. Like maybe I wouldn't be happy in a genderless society. Most people wouldn't. So at that point, I wouldn't be in favor of it, like if it actually turned out that way. So like I have like,
what are you actually in favor of? You just gave me this is like maybe I would be in favor of this, but what is
sure. So
something
so broadly speaking, I'm in general of people having as much freedom as possible to make the choices that they want and to be empowered to make those choices to live the lives that they want, as long as it doesn't like negatively impact other people. Very liberal. That's like broadly speaking, that's like my desire. And then how that plays out would depend on the particular policy you want to talk about.
Okay. So would like an anarcho-capitalist society, if somehow possible, be like the ultimate conclusion to that, or?
I mean, if that was possible, sure, but it seems like realistically, it seems like greater levels of cooperation are needed between people to produce better outcomes. So for instance, some people have access to a lot of capital, some people have access to no capital. There's probably things that the people with lots of capital could provide to the people with little capital that would make their lives all like substantially better. There'd be like a higher opportunity for higher level people to help lower level people in ways that like the government could facilitate.
But that would be limiting the liberty of the higher level people.
Yeah, but you would be limiting their freedom a little bit to provide a lot of freedom to people on the bottom. So like in a utilitarian.
How do you measure freedom?
Well, we can measure it in a lot of different ways. Depends on what you want to talk about. If we talk about healthcare, then you'd measure freedom in so far as like access to healthcare. So for instance, if somebody goes to the hospital, like the doctor says, hey, you've got a weird mole, do you want to get it biopsied? And they don't do it because they can't afford it, you'd say that person has limited freedom. I think there's a lot of, is it the World Health Organization that ranks like healthcare systems in terms of like access to healthcare? Like that's one way you can measure freedom. There is organizations that rank your freedom of like press, like your journalistic freedom. It would like that's a really broad question. Economic freedoms are things you could talk about. Like,
okay, so that would mean that the ideal world is if everyone has the most freedom, and everyone having the most freedom would be everyone having the same amount. That would be ideal, right?
I don't know if everybody needs the same amount. I think that there's just things that most people should have access to. Like if you want to get education, I don't think everybody needs like a yacht and like a multi-million-dollar like mansion, but everybody should probably have access to like education and healthcare and housing.
Oh, that'd be nice.
So do they just get that for free, or?
If that's the way that it works out best, then sure. But if not, then no. Like, I don't think housing needs to be made free as long as the job market is available and works well. Healthcare seems like something that either needs to be free or very heavily subsidized. Yeah, it just depends on how that particular market works.
Well, if I might chime in real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Destiny, what is your take on monarchism?
I don't fuck monarchism. I don't care about kings or queens. It doesn't seem to be a very effective way to rule things or to make society work.
All right. Well, let's play a political game.
Sure.
For a moment, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I understand political theory isn't very practical in real life, but let's go on with it just to see how it goes.
Sure.
So let's say that you have a monarchy. First let's go through exactly how such a system would work. A traditional monarchy functions the same way as, fundamentally it is feudal, so it goes from bottom to top, right? Let me close out of this. So you have the serf caste, right?
Okay.
They basically work, but they do not hold land.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this caste is directly subservient to then the landowners who actually have land rights.
Mm-hmm.
Those then pay taxes to the lords, which then pay their tariffs to the king. Now, this society works best because in practice it is simple.
Okay.
If I were to say replace this with a democratic country where everybody votes, so like let's say pure democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we had that. What exactly? Oh, God, let me collect my thoughts for a moment.
Are you asking me, like, if there was a successful monarchy versus an unsuccessful capitalist country, like, what would I be more in favor of?
You know, this was a lot easier when I was debating socialists.
Sure.
All right. So, God damn it.
This is an embarrassment.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Listen, if you're
You
not
gotta
ready,
do
we
your
can go
prep
to another
before you
question.
come on, buddy.
I can
Not
give you
everybody
another.
can wing it like Catboy Cammy.
If we can move on to something else, if you're not ready for this, if you just
Yeah, I'll try again later. I'm sorry, man.
Well, wait, hold on. Wait.
Yeah.
Were you trying to say, like, what if you had, like, a successful monarchy that was, like, taking care of the people?
Okay. I think I've got something. Okay, so a monarchy is basically where you pass down rulership from you to your son or heir, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we've settled that.
Okay.
Now, with that said, I think that works best because those heirs are actually trained from birth to do their job, as opposed to a politician who is in it usually just for the money. I'm not saying that the politicians are necessarily always selfish, but rather that they are almost always motivated by the very nature of democratic principles. You know, you're not there for life. You can screw up the country and move to another one, you know.
If
That's
monarchies are inherently the best, then why is it that the only surviving monarchies today are the ones that have abandoned monarch rule in favor of democratic rule? Why did every other monarchy fall and fail?
Well, I think a part of that was because the aristocracy, right, which was a class unto itself, was kind of independent politically, right? And this difference in power grew over time as mercantilism fell, until eventually the noble class lost power, and so we have what we have today with free market capitalism. Now, my argument is that the system of old was actually more efficient in running a society than the one we currently live in.
But it wasn't efficient in terms of allocation of talent or capital. Just because somebody's trained from birth to do a particular job doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be the best at that job. You might have had some types of serfs or some low people working the lands that might have had an aptitude for something far greater than what they were doing, but you'd never know it because they were stuck in a certain class that was arbitrary to, like, the conditions of their birth. That's probably not a good way to
I
organize.
actually agree. Yeah, I totally understand that. Now, my solution to that is have a slightly modified caste system where you can actually work out of your, system. But generally speaking, the people who run the country always stays the same. That's fundamentally the main thing I want to keep the same.
What if they suck at running the country, though?
Well, the same could be said for a politician.
Well, no,
The
because
fact
politicians
is,
are voted out of office if they suck. A monarch, you have no way to remove besides revolution or being conquered.
That's true, except you have to also factor in motivation. So let's say I had a king who absolutely sucked at his job, but fundamentally was exactly the same motivation, had the same motivation as any other king. So let me put it this way, okay? To a king, his country is his own personal property. Now, with that established, being his own personal property. I mean, it's kind of like owning a house or an apartment. You own an apartment, you rent it out to people, but fundamentally you want to keep that apartment's value up, right? And you pass that on to your heirs. Now, the apartment analogy is a little silly, I understand, because it's a lot bigger, it's more complicated. And that seems to be a position you take a lot, it's much more complicated than what our political theories really take into account. But I think in practice, you have a lot more quality leaders, and you have more of a chance of those qualities being passed on versus a democracy that is purely without merit. Now,
well, I mean, wait, what you're talking
about
about is purely without merit as well. Yours is only by blood. There's nothing merit-based about that.
Right. But you have to understand, most politicians, they don't get into it being raised from birth to do exactly that. Kings are only supposed to do one job.
Yeah, but how many kings are raised from birth that suck at being kings, or that end up getting backstabbed by somebody in their cabinet, or end up being conquered by other countries? Just because you're raised from birth to be a king doesn't mean you're an effective king. And also, you might be raised from birth to serve that aristocracy or that ruling class. Maybe you don't serve the serfs very well. I mean, like, monarchies have had so many problems in the past, and it seems like they were totally left by the wayside for more democratic systems, you know, unless you've got a lot of outside support, like the Saud family or whatever. Like, it seems like, you know, like people like the United Kingdom and everybody have decided, like, oh, cool. Like, or I think Sweden even has a monarch, or maybe that's Norway. I think Sweden does, but like nobody like pays attention to them because they realize democratic
no one pays
rules.
attention to that.
Yeah, it's more effective.
I think it's a shame, really, because it used to be that the king, even if you don't agree with it politically, like as a system, kings would be more of a symbol of the nation. Perhaps even in a representative monarchy, in which case the king doesn't have all of the power, like, say, as was envisioned with the Magna Carta. You still have that king as a symbol, uniting the country as a figurehead. I don't think you get the same effect with the president.
Okay. I mean, it feels like we kind of have that effect with the president. Like, our head of state is seen as like a pretty big like symbol of America.
Right.
Yeah.
But the span of his term is much smaller, at least in America. You know, it's only 8 years. That's a blink of the eye,
Hey!
really.
Okay.
Unmute Sargoy.
Wait, what? Oh, sorry about that. You were making lots of noises.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because the chat's actually confused who you are. Are you by chance a Z celeb?
I have no idea what that is.
Tosh? You Seth?
Identify yourself.
Hey, people. Seth here.
Well, there you
Doesn't
go.
sound anything like Seth.
Thank you
I've been
for
told I
running
sound
PlayStation
like him.
13 for like the 5th time.
Yeah, whoever. I'm gonna kill that guy if I ever talk to him. But you go ahead with that stupid monarchist thing you're talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see like any path to monarchy right now. They seem like they were highly ineffective in the past. Again, I guess like interesting to theorize about, but I mean, it seems like they had so many problems in the past. It doesn't seem like a very effective way to organize a state.
And yet you have to consider that monarchism has existed in some form for well over 1,000 years or more.
Okay.
If it was really such a bad system at ruling, then surely it would have been replaced earlier. I
Not
think
necessarily.
it wasn't solely monarchism at fault for the fact that monarchism failed. It was probably more of a mix of that as well as societal pressures from the Enlightenment.
Okay.
I will give you one thing. The new political systems that are today are much better at making money. You know, you look at a free market capitalist society, God, we are absolutely swimming in money.
I'm not.
Well, you're not, but who cares about you? Who cares about
I do.
you? Okay, fair enough. But it doesn't matter because the wealth of the country does not necessarily mean the wealth of the individual. I think in a
Meritocracy?
Yeah, a
Meritocracy,
meritocracy / monarchy mix is probably the way to go, where all positions except for inherited ones, like say in the case of king, queen, prince, stuff like that, those should be able to be worked up to by your own merits. Those merits should be, say, Kami would probably agree with this, genetics, intelligence, and we would have tests for all of these things. Me personally, since I'm an Anglo, I'm a filthy Anglo, I believe in absolute monarchy for England under certain circumstances. So
I'd just like to interject for a moment. The guy who was here previously, he said you were Jewish. What do you have to say about that?
Not Seth.
I don't really have a big nose.
Okay.
I think there's more to it than that, but whatever.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I
my
think-
friend. I've given you a long time to
Just like,
talk. I'm going to give you exactly 3 sentences. Please sum up your point and your argument in 3 sentences, and that's it. That's all you get.
Yeah, I don't think we're really getting very far with just trying to advocate for
we'll give him
monarchy
the
here.
last
Consider
chance.
yourself
You got 3. Listen, guys. I'm giving him the last chance. 3 sentences. Please go.
All right, so let me think carefully about this for a moment. Okay, can I?
That's 1. You got 2 left.
Okay, you take a couple minutes to consider that. Catboy Cammy, do you have another interesting policy point to debate, or?
I don't know. Like Destiny doesn't really have any policy points himself, so.
I mean, we can talk policy about anything you want. What do you think healthcare should look like? What country are you from, or what country are you like representing? I guess.
I'm in
Australia
America right now, so.
Okay. Well, what do you think America should do with its healthcare system?
I think it should get rid of any government help whatsoever, and overall that will lower the government subsidies in the healthcare system end up making things cost more. So if you just remove them all completely, healthcare would end up costing less in the end.
Why is it that medicine across all of Europe that uses some form of social healthcare costs less than in America, where it's freer than in other countries?
No, it costs more, but the government's like footing the bill.
No, it actually costs less. Like if you look at spending GDP per capita, like in every other country in the world, it's cheaper than in the United States. Like our procedures just cost more, whether governments are subsidizing them in other countries or not. Like healthcare as a percentage of GDP in the United States is more expensive than any other country in the world.
Isn't there some like weird tismy thing with like how we do our patents too that stops like in certain like things going generic?
How'd
Yeah,
you worm your way back in here?
I've been here the entire time.
Patent laws and other issues.
So do you think that patent laws should be eliminated?
Yeah, probably.
So then what incentive would pharmaceutical companies have to research and test drugs and bring them to market if they have no protections for once they research said drug?
I mean, they'd still make money off of it. They'd just make less.
Well, they would make no money because generics would
be
be printed immediately, and they wouldn't have the ability to sell the drug to recoup the cost of the investment.
I'd like to interject.
Yeah.
So you're saying that generic brands are actually bad. Wouldn't that lower the price of drugs for everyday consumers? Who cares about the companies?
Well, we need the initial.
What matters is the consumer. The consumer should always come first.
But if we don't have those drugs being developed, then the consumer can never buy them.
Right. So what I was thinking, right, this is kind of, you might come up with something to counter this, but what if we just had the state sponsor new drug developments?
Yeah, we could. Some people have said that instead of maybe a patent system, maybe we should have a reward system instead, so that if you discover a new drug, you get paid a flat fee, and then everybody can produce it like at cost of manufacturing, basically, with a small profit margin.
What about
Well, but I'm more interested in here because the Catboy over here said that I had no policy positions. So I'm curious if he has any besides white nationalism, because it seemed like he really hadn't thought about healthcare much.
I think we already established he hadn't already. But I got a counterpoint here from the chat. They said, "What about the? What would you do for people? Not people. So if the law is for people who discover a new drug, or about regular workers or lab workers who don't actually discover new drugs, but do most of the field work and grunt work to getting those drugs made to begin with. They're not discovering. They may not even discover a drug in their lifetime, but they're working on their grunt work goes into eventually discovering a new drug.
Well, I mean, they get paid an hourly wage, right? For research?
Right, obviously, but where's the research money coming from if the money only generates this proposed grant from the government if you discover a drug?
Well, I mean, it's like a risk analysis, right? Like, let's say that you round up every single firm and you've got like a 10% chance of your firm discovering a drug. Let's say that if you get paid, let's say that if you discover a good drug, let's say that you get paid $10 million for doing so, right? If you've got a 10% chance of discovering a new drug and the reward is $10 million, then you probably want to spend less than $1 million on all your overhead for every drug that you research. Because if you spend about $900,000 and you succeed 1 out of 10 times, then you make, what, like $1 million? Like 10 million minus the 900,000 times 10 times that you spent to research the drug on it, right? You would work this out, like risk analysis would take care of like how much you would spend based on the reward given, right?
I can see an issue with this. So what if you make a completely useless drug that is technically completely brand new, but you get $10 million anyway? Shouldn't it be according to the usefulness of said drug?
Well, of course, that's how the reward system would work. I would imagine that if we could think of if we had a design where we were giving rewards and somebody figured out a pill that would like cure Alzheimer's, the reward for that would probably be significantly higher than somebody that had a drug that made your fingernails grow faster, right? But you would probably scale the reward based on, I don't know, it could be public input. I don't know how you would do it exactly, but yeah, a reward system would be complicated, of course, because you'd have to figure out how to reward said drugs. But
how do you feel about lessening the restrictions on generics that come in from overseas with countries that have comparable medical systems to the U.S.?
I haven't looked into that one as much. I've heard the claim there's a really good counterexample. Someone in chat will bring it up. I've heard the claim that our FDA is too strict, but I believe, wasn't there a certain drug that caused really bad birth defects in women that our FDA said no to? Oh, thalidomide?
That's why the FDA was implemented in the first place.
Well, part of the problem...
in response to that drug.
Yeah,
Well,
it
was either that's when the FDA was implemented or that's when like they tightened the restrictions.
Sure. So I don't know if our FDA restrictions are too strict compared to European countries, but I mean, yeah, I'm always in favor of evaluating FDA restrictions if they go too far, of course.
Part of the problem with that is also that it costs like, a friend of mine used to work in pharmaceuticals. I think he said it costs like, on average, like $1 billion to get a
drug to market.
And that's like part of that's also like the approval process.
Well, phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3 trials especially are super. And like I think half of all drugs die like in phase 3, and it's so expensive to do it. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a hot shot here, but I'll give it a shot. So for overseas drugs, I think the ones that are actually beneficial, I think we should give them incentives to start production here in the mainland US. I also think we should increase production of drugs overall because, supply and demand, the price of drugs will go down. Mm-hmm. That's why treatment is so expensive. It's because we, outsource to these private companies that only produce a small amount of it.
Well, no, that's not. No. The reason why treatment is expensive is because when you're paying for a pill, so a marginal cost is the cost to produce the next thing, right? The marginal cost, pills are very cheap to make. Drugs are super cheap to make. The reason why they're so expensive is because you're paying for the research and development that went into creating said drug. Like once you've done all the R&D to make a drug, making the pill itself is trivial. That's why generics are so cheap, is because they can just sell at the cost that it makes to create the pill, and they don't have to account for all the R&D that went into it. That's why we reward patents, to give people an ability to recoup those R&D costs.
Right. So my question to you is, to what extent should they recoup those costs? Like, how much profit should there be?
Well, right now do we have it marked at, I think it's 10 years or something? I don't know what our patent is set at, but I mean, maybe you could cap it at a certain like profit made, or maybe you could do a reward system or something. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that should be changed. I don't know what the patent limit right now is right now. Is it 7 years or something? Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know too much about our healthcare system. I'm just a filthy Zoomer, so.
Okay. What else do you got, Catboy? How do you feel about a 15 an hour minimum wage, Mr. Policy Man over there?
Minimum wages, I mean, even in my personal experience, limit people's ability to get into the workforce to begin with. And, the classic Zoomer and I think somewhat millennial phenomena of, I need experience to start working, because no one's hiring without experience, but how do I get experience if I can't get a job? Right. Yeah, that's kind of an issue, and I think minimum wage exacerbates that.
So you think all those people that are coming out of high school with or college with degrees that like can't find jobs that want to hire with experience, if those people could work more jobs at like $6 an hour, it would boost their ability
well, if
to
they could work, well, obviously their value as an employee is not worth the minimum wage, so, and that's why they're not being hired. So if they could work for less.
Well, I don't think minimum wages are being applied to jobs where people need a lot of experience, right?
Right. They tend to,
no, I mean, it's like even for like a waiter or something like that, like often they won't hire you unless you have some experience.
Well, but like waiters aren't paid a minimum wage, right?
No, they're paid less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
It depends also what part of this country you're in as well. Some parts of the country don't. The value of a job is less because the cost of living there is less. So even if a minimum wage federally is okay in some states it's not. It outprices many individuals.
I'm talking about what the effect would be of like a mandatory minimum wage.
I feel like the effect of that would be very bad because the higher the minimum wage, the lower the value of each individual employee. Or no, actually, it's the opposite. So let's say I raised it to $15 an hour right now. So the value of each employee goes up, but the amount of money that is able to go to each employee goes down because they're having to give more to each person. So they would probably cut down on labor by doing more automation. And actually, it's very similar to what's going on today. Like, have you ever noticed how a lot of McDonald's, for example, they're becoming automated with those?
Yeah, because automation is becoming cheaper. Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, I have
talking about the value of labor and all that. I think Catboy Cammy also have some very strong opinions on the value of black people in American society. Maybe that's something we should get into. It seems like it could be a pretty big point of contention.
I mean, like if you ever talk about some like large change that could be implemented to have a large effect, Destiny's response is, well, you're not gonna have support for that, so talking about it is pointless. So
that's not true. So like getting some form of like a public option would be one of the largest changes in the economic landscape of American history, and that's something I'm in favor of doing. But there's a very real way forward for that. There's political will for it. I guess the difference is that like when I consider my political opinions, they don't all come from like a forum of like other people LARPing on the internet. Like I try to look at the actual political landscape of the country that I'm talking about.
Right. So yeah, that's the point.
What's the point? The point that you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about for any of your positions. That you just come online and talk about white nationalism because it's the only thing you care about.
To talk about like, say, getting rid of black people or something like that, your response would be there's no political support. So
well, is there?
That kind of ends the discussion.
Well, maybe
we should talk more about the pragmatic effects of it than the.
Well, or rather, if you pay me enough money, I could sit there and write you out like there are ways if you wanted to export all black people. There are like steps you could take to do it. There are like step 1 and step 2 that you could do. I don't know why you've never spent any time thinking about them before. Like.
Well, Kami, he's giving you a lot of trouble for not knowing anything about
Delta, shut up. Just let them have a back and forth real quick, okay?
You had your chance, bro. You had your 3 fucking sentences. Yeah. It's over now.
I'm removing you from the group. You're thank you.
Like, I'll give you a freebie. Like, here's one if you want. How about we set, like, a restriction on the United States? If you want to be a U.S. citizen, then you can't be involved in, like, terrorist groups. What if we start designating gangs as terrorist groups? We know that black people are disproportionately involved in gang violence. Let's say that if you're involved with terrorist groups, you can be, like, exported from the country into some arbitrary place. There you go. There's like one policy prescription. You might even be able to fly that by the Republican Party because they hate fucking gangs so much. You get like the Crips and the Bloods associated with MS-13. You just start deporting gang members that have been convicted of federal crimes. Like there's one policy position that you could talk about if you wanted to that actually has like maybe some political possibility of passing in certain states. Like, I don't know. Like you could have like a million different types of these positions, but you haven't thought about any of this. You just go online and you LARP with other white nationalists. You don't think about anything at all. I don't know. Like it's really stupid.
Because, oh fuck, hang on, I gotta kill this cunt.
Are you playing Fortnite?
You loaded up Fortnite. Of course you did. You stopped running out of good owns from chat.
Destiny, I do have a quick personal question. Would you be interested in playing a D&D game with me and a couple of my guys?
No! Oh god,
I don't have the time for that shit.
Fucking awful game. Come on, buddy.
Okay, listen. I want to play. I need to go play my weeb games. Can I go do that? Are we good? Do we have any final points or questions or anything you got for me?
Yeah, we've been going for a long time. We've been going for like 2 hours. Any closing comments from anyone here?
Destiny's wife fucks black guys. That's my closing statement.
Nice. I don't think this guy said like anything of substance. I guess like the owns that I've heard repeated from the same 700 different people have done over and over again.
This debate interesting.
Yeah, thanks to the other people that actually had some input here because holy fuck, Catboy needed the help. Jesus Christ.
I do actually have one other like actual. I do actually have one other question. Are you with the rise of automation? Are you like for maybe certain taxing of corporations that implement like a certain amount of automation? Basically, are you okay with like putting robots into slavery?
It doesn't really make sense. A lot of people, I think as Yang suggested that, a tax on like robot workers. The thing is that like we've had different types of like automation in the past that we've never taxed before. Like, how would you even begin to determine how to tax that? Like, for instance, I have a program on my computer called Microsoft Excel. That program technically replaces like a whole office full of people that would file papers. Like, should that program have to pay taxes? Or like if I create a robot that can do the work that like 3 people can do today, but in the past it would have taken 40 people to do with different tools, but in the past would have taken 100 people. Like how do you even begin to figure out like what to that seems like really hard to tax capital.
If like unemployment in a certain sector goes beyond a certain amount, and then you just take a look at like how many of their workforce was automated before and after that, and then just kind of do it on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, like, I'm in favor of like wealth transfers in industries where like a lot of workers are being negatively impacted, like manufacturing in the U.S., for instance. Yeah, sure.
Finally, a good fucking stream.
All right. Well,
I couldn't hear all that over the sound effects. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have that guy turned on to like 20%.
The debate is over.
Okay. All right. Well, listen.
I think we've determined that we've been going on for
Voluntary
a long
shut
time.
up.
I love you guys. It's been fun. Be careful.
I think
Yeah. What's up?
You have a good day,
Nobody
Destiny.
won.
We'll
Destiny, if you would,
Wait,
do
I'll
me a
see if I
favor
can
and
get someone
DM
more.
me guys
Hold on,
and
hold on,
talk to you
Everyone
about it.
slow down. Everyone slow down. Before you
Jesus
go, Destiny, you got
Christ.
any closing statements to make?
This conversation
already
was
met
about as
one.
painful as I thought it would be. But I'm glad you guys brought me here to talk to this scat dude, so I could confirm that he was as fucking stupid as I thought he would be. It's been fun. Yeah.
Was in at some point. I don't know. I think
I've
it might be
never,
something
I don't
that-
raid people's servers because I don't give a fuck. I'm sure Venti's accused me of doxing all sorts of shit, but honestly, I just don't think about these people anywhere near as much as they think about me. So no. I mean, I guess I could talk to her for the lulz. I don't, maybe, but the thing is, she just screams that I'm a pedophile like a million times at me over and over again. And the problem is that like I used to enjoy going really hard at her, like it was fun. But after looking at the really pathetic videos of her and her like abusive ex-boyfriend and her walking around her trashed apartment like crying at her ruin of a life, it just feels bad to like make fun of her. So I don't know. It's not really entertaining for me.
I think she was the one crying, fam. I think her boyfriend was the one having the nervous breakdown.
Mako, shut up. One more time before you leave, Destiny.
I don't think she was crying about eggs.
Please. Toho character.
It's
I'm not
Kogasa.
sure
That's my
anybody
favorite
can hear
character,
you.
okay?
Sorry
I like
about that.
Kogasa.
I feel like
Yep. I'm confirming Kogasa. Okay, I love you guys. All right, have fun. Peace out, guys. See you later. Bye. Gee, okay, I want to go back to debating lefties now. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know what I thought would happen. Did they try and say it? Oh no, but I muted the audio just in case. Apparently New Jersey included they were the last state to outlaw slavery, but it was in 1804 with policies set in place to gradually abolish it. And that the last like amount of slaves they had was in 1840. And the Emancipation Proclamation was like 1863. I don't know like all my slavery history because I haven't met like a slavery revisionist yet. Not as much as I know like Nazi history. Jesus Christ. I hate that nobody has policies. It's so boring to me. Socialists don't have policies. Communists don't have policies. Like, I feel like if I went into like a think tank for a week, this is super arrogant of me to say. I don't mean it to sound that way, but I really do feel like if I went into a think tank for a week, I could come up with a more coherent alt-right position and a more coherent socialist position than 99% of the people on the internet that profess these beliefs. Like, I could give you like a step-by-step guide to reach like a socialist empire. I could give you a step-by-step guide to get to like an alt-right empire. Like, we could start with small changes that incrementally move society in a different direction with policies that people would support now that would make people more amenable people in the future to policies that would be more radical. Like, I think you could do all of this. It would take me like, and I'm not bragging, it's just easy. Like, we could sit here and do this in like 30 minutes for each position. It would be so, but nobody has anything. Nobody does anything. I don't even have anything I can debate or push back on or consider. It's just like, let's export all black people or let's kill all landlords. It's so fucking boring, dude. Like, nobody spends any time thinking about this at all. Like, is it, well, the problem is that, like, for me, like, the fun is, like, I like going through arguments. It's fun for me, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, being totally honest, I'm not doing this because I love minorities or because I'm trying to, like, be the wokest brother in the room. I just like arguments. It's really fun for me. Like, what is the best way to organize a society? What's the most effective policy for solving these problems? That's fun for me, and I enjoy doing that. But when I talk to other people, it feels like the most fun for them is just being in a group of people that agree with them. And then they kind of have positions they say they have, but they don't know any of them. They've never argued them before. They don't know the counter arguments to them. They're just doing shit because, like, other people in their group do that shit, and that's it. They have but so, like, I don't know why these people debate at all. I think that, like, I actually admire people like Hassan or Kyle Kalinske that have, like, evolved to realize, like, I'm not going to debate anybody. I'm just going to sit here and circle jerk with my audience, because at least they're more honest to themselves, right? Like, obviously you're not going to debate anybody. You don't know any of your fucking positions. Like, just circle jerk over, like, headlines and articles and Twitter threads. Like, you're getting everything that you need out of your political movement, which is a group that supports you. And then you're avoiding all the nasty messiness, like having to actually justify your policy positions in the eyes of someone that disagrees with you. Like, who cares about that shit? That shit's for fucking nerds and policy losers, right? Just circle jerk with your friends. It's so much better. It's more fun. It's less antagonizing. Like, yeah, Crowder and Shapiro. Conservatives figured this out on the internet before lefties did too. Like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, these guys don't fucking debate people. Even older people, Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, these guys don't debate people. They just get on their fucking radio programs and then they talk with their audience about how right they are about everything. Yeah. It sucks because even in their respective political theory histories, they have many examples of people who do work on concrete policies, but they can't even engage with the history they want to invoke. Yeah, like, that's the same thing too. Like, Hitler's ideology for Aryan was incredibly racialized, but it wasn't just around white people. It was around Aryans. It was like a very specific subset of white people. But, like, if you wanted to, you could say, like, I understood that Hitler argued for this, but I'm sure that there are neo-Nazis, like, even in neo-Nazi literature, that have expanded on Hitler's theories, the same way that if you wanted to seriously talk about socialism today, you wouldn't be citing Marx directly. You'd probably be citing other, like, Marxist academics that have, like, expanded on his work, but they're not familiar with any of it. They just have to, like, rewrite and reorganize and revise, like, history to make it fit their modern day arguments, and it's so stupid and lazy. It's so lazy, dude. Fuck. Stop helping the Nazis. I'm not trying to help the Nazis. It's just, it's not fun for me. Like, to sit in a room with this guy making the same stupid arguments I've heard a million times, like, black come from your girlfriend. Like, it's okay, dude. Like, at the very least, like, I guess back in the day it was more fun because some of the people were more creative. But, like, dude, I've heard this meme like 50 million times, dog. You gotta have something better by now. It reminds me of all the streamers that, like, call me short, that I meet in real life, that are shorter than me. Like, at the end of the day, it feels like, and I didn't believe this was, like, a real thing, but, like, now I'm fully on board with it. It feels like projection. Like, I actually sincerely wonder if that guy fucks girls and he's actually, like, getting flaccid because he's worried that, like, this girl has fucked a black guy before. Like, I wonder if that's something that's actively on his mind, that he's, like, actually worried about and thinking about all the time, because it seems like he gives away way more of what he believes than me, you know? He seems like the kind of incel that fucks guys so he's not a virgin. Maybe, yeah, but that was kind of like, if we could have ran down, because, like, as embarrassing as it is, because of all the random shit I read on the internet, like, I probably know more, like, red pill ideology than that guy is. So, like, I was, like, super curious about, because he's telling me that, like, he only fucks racist girls, right? But is that true? Because if you're truly red pilled, then you would believe that girls are looking for, like, big black dicks to ride on the cock carousel because they're attracted to, like, those beastly manly minority figures. Like, that's what a lot of, like, black pill people especially believe, that, like, women can't control themselves around some of these minorities, and that's why they need to get rid of them from society, right? So if you truly believe that, why would you trust a woman? If you believe that all women are liars and whores, why would you trust them to be honest about whether or not they fucked a minority dick? Like, they wouldn't be. That's contradictory in your own ideology, right? You're already, like, at a contradiction within your own, like, even without black pilling yourself, like, red pillers believe that women lie constantly. So, like, how can you take any woman at her word in terms of who she's fucked when half your ideology revolves around women lying about how many guys they've fucked? Like, how could you even trust them? You would have to exclusively fuck virgins.
Waiting for Mao to finish building his summer car.
What's your favorite debate from the left and from the right? I don't even know. Favorite debate, it just depends on, like, what It just depends on like what you like out of a debate. I like my one was with Nick Fuentes and Lauren Southern because I did a lot of research for those. I like my one with the no bullshit because he was just funny to laugh at him because like, and even then, what if they lie about being virgins? Yeah, that's true too. Women would lie about being virgins too, right? Like it's funny. Like it's funny and sad because you have an entire ideology that's built on women lying about who they fuck. But when you tell me how you validate who a woman's fucked, you do it by asking her to be honest to you about who she's fucked. Like your argument is literally self-defeating. Like you, even like through basic forms of deductive logic, like we've arrived at inherent contradictions and we haven't even gotten to hard questions yet, right? Like we haven't even gotten to like a hard thing yet. So how, like, I don't know. Like how do you kiss a girl? What if she's like sucked on a black dick? Like does that count as like, how much time do you need before a woman is untainted by blackness between fucking one or kissing one and moving to the other? I don't know. Have you been reading Nassim Nicholas Taleb? I noticed you mentioned Black Swan events in another conversation. I've seen the term Black Swan pop up a lot describing the shocks that our economy is undergoing right now. I don't know how I feel about that Nassim guy. Like I've read some stuff by him. I feel like I've read him say some things that are really fucking politically stupid. But when it comes to just talking about math and stats, I think the guy is generally right. But I'm not sure. I would have to go back and read. I don't know. He said that giving a girl head is gay. Yeah, but he did say that, but he also said that kissing girls is something he did. And I mean, like, if giving a girl head is gay because a black dick might have been in there, why is kissing a girl okay when a black dick might have been in there? Like, doesn't really make sense, right? Why don't you talk to smarter people, kind of like that time you debated that John Locke guy? Yeah, I should have him back on. The thing is that, like, when it comes to, like, really smart people, this sounds so circle jerky. I don't mean to, like, suck myself off on stream. But, like, generally when I get to more, like, informed people in certain positions, like, usually it's just us, like, circle jerking for a while and agreeing with each other. Like, even though John Locke and I were sort of fundamentally opposed to each other at the beginning of that debate, like, by the time we got to the end, like, I was mostly in agreement with John Locke's prescriptions because he wasn't a white nationalist. Notice that it was the red Vincent. That was the guy that was getting cucked by his chat, right? When me and John Locke were agreeing that, like, yeah, getting rid of the war on drugs would probably be, like, one of the most effective ways to combat gun violence rather than, like, arbitrary magazine restrictions or banning assault rifles. Like, me and Locke were in lockstep, in agreement in that. And it was triggering the fuck out of Vincent and his audience. So, like, generally when it comes to, like, or, like, that terrorist expert, or, like, or any, like, I don't know, generally when I bring on, like, super well-informed people, like, usually we tend to agree, like, on most things. Oh, John Lott, not John Locke. Sorry. Fuck, I was thinking my D&D character. You have ascended too far in debate status. Yeah, but the problem is that, like, if you were to honest to God, like, go back and do an account of all of like my debates, like, I very, very, very rarely get into policy debate.
That addiction convo was painful to listen to. Stephen didn't understand addiction and none of us were surprised.
You know how that guy could have owned me? You know how that guy could have owned me? That guy was making the claim that addiction wasn't something that was like a chemical property, that it was just people's poor behaviors. And I was insisting that, well, no, there's physiological underlying reasons why addiction happens. If he would have said, show me the MRIs that show the differences between league players and normal people, and I'll believe you, he would have owned me so hard. I would have conceded the whole fucking argument. We got close there. Almost none of my debates have been like meaningful, substantive debates. Like pretty much all of my debates boil down to the other person not knowing logic, so like how to build a conclusion from premises, or not understanding like how to read like a graph, like, unironically, or like how to interpret stats. These are like, I would say like 95% of like my conversations. Or being conspiracy theorists that say they don't trust data, yeah. But whatever, I don't know. This one was like worse than most. Hopefully the ones in the future will be a little better. I don't know what I have, if I've got anything scheduled right now. I don't think I have anything on the schedule at the moment. Oh, I'm going to be on a Tree of Logic podcast, but that's on
More
the 26th.
than 5 years of this shit bonus meme, wowie.
Oh, my philosophy convos have been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed that a lot. I think it's really funny, like, I shouldn't let people pivot away. I do, because especially like this is like one of the reasons why like I don't consider myself a sociopath. I think I have like some level of empathy because I did feel like a little bit bad for that cat guy at the end. Like it was pretty clear that he felt like he was getting blown the fuck out and he started to feel bad about it. Like he lost like a lot of energy. He felt pretty stupid probably for just copy pasting things off of chat. Also notice that when I pointed out that I was reading chat, because I was reading his chat the whole time, almost all of his insults were getting ripped from chat, and he kind of stopped talking as soon as I said I had his chat open because he knew that like anything he said I would have already read. But But then I have to remind myself, well, hold on, this guy was literally like attacking my girlfriend earlier, so I don't really feel that bad for him. But like, notice how every time he tried to nail me, it's like, okay, Destiny, well, what's one policy that you would have to improve diet? And it's like, oh, okay, well, what about a sugar tax? And then he like totally just like shuts the fuck up and like walks away. I was like, okay, dude, like, do you think? But it's funny because like I know why he's asking me that question, because if I ask him those questions, he legitimately has no answers, right? So he projects his uninformedness onto me, right? He's like, okay, I don't have any policies, but I know he doesn't either, so I'm gonna ask him. And but then when you do, he's like, oh fuck, like I'm so fucked. Like I don't know, fuck him, dude. Okay, I'm done. Like done jerking myself off for now, I guess. Especially if you're feeling empathy for Venti. Dude, Venti's life was so fucked up. Like, her life is so fucking pathetic. Holy shit. Like, what I was going to do, because she likes to make videos about me with a whole bunch of, like, bullshit information, I thought about, like, publishing. I don't normally do it, but just because it'd be funny to, like, the idea of, like, her... I can't say that because Twitch TOS. The idea of, like, her doing bad things around herself or whatever, like because of like shit that I say or whatever, it is almost funny, like of how like crazy like the influence you get on the internet is. I don't think I can say anything else relating to that, but like her, when this guy sent me like a whole bunch of information about her, like it was just sad. It was honestly so sad. Like if you go on YouTube and you look up like Brittany Venti boyfriend, like holy shit, like oh my god, it's actually so fucking sad. They're like, I understand why people like that are always lashing out. Like these people, and it's probably true. Oh my god. In preparation of my debate actually with Mike Enoch, I got a very similar view of him as well. I read a piece I think it was a piece in the New Yorker that went through the life of Mike Enoch. And it was so incredibly sad. Like, before he got into alt-right stuff, he was basically like an internet nerd that argued as a contrarian on the internet. He like had like really bad eczema and asthma growing up, so he was always kind of like indoors. Like all the pictures that he had of him and his family, he was like wheezing or like red or inflamed. He didn't have very many friends. He spent a lot of time on the internet. Like the one woman that he found that he like fell in love with and stuff and married, she was Jewish. And eventually when he went alt-right and she found out, like she left him. Like a lot of these people's lives are just incredibly fucking sad, and at the end of the day they're just like looking for a group of people that they feel like they belong with. Like at the end of the day, like that's all they want, right? I think like someone saying I'm doing the Sigmund Freud thing, I don't think I'm doing hardcore psychoanalysis here. Like I'm just speaking to like very basic tenets of like human like conditioning, right? People just want to have like groups that they belong to.
Happy birthday, Solider. Stay healthy and safe.
Thanks, bud. I don't know why you donated to Ram Ranch thing. I'm not playing like media right now, but this is a funny meme song, so thank you, my dude. I'll listen to it tonight. Oh no, wait, was this Enoch or Striker that I'm talking about? No, I'm talking about Enoch right now. But yeah, like a lot of these guys are like super sad and like super pathetic, and like I understand why they're in the groups they're in, right? Like you want to feel like you can be in a group of people and that you can all like collectively talk about like a trait. And like being white is as good as anything, I guess, right? Especially when, you know, as it stands, a lot of these people are like NEETs, right? They don't have any education. They don't have any like successful employment. They don't have any high level training. They don't have like any accomplishments. They don't own businesses or come from like wealthy backgrounds. You know, they're just kind of like middle class or lower middle class white dudes that don't have much going for them in life, but they find a group that accepts them and then gives them something to be like super proud of, right? It's kind of like the ISIS recruitment shit, right? Like you don't have purpose in life. Well, not only can I give you purpose, I can give you purpose with a history behind it, my dude. Like you're not just a random fucking white guy on the street. You're a white guy with like rich European ancestry. You might not have any accomplishments, but you better believe that your ancestors do, and you can be proud of those accomplishments. And we can talk about how cool they are. And part of being in our group also includes like excising other groups as well. Like, yeah, ugh. But whatever, man.
Posture check chat. Remember, back straight or you will get scoliosis and get kicked out of your mother's basement and or attic.
What would be a good policy that could combat that? Honest to God, I've thought about this, and I've tried to think of. I haven't thought about it too much, but I've tried to think of counter arguments to it. And like the more that I revisit the idea and think about it, the more that I'm actually in favor of it. I think the idea of compulsory volunteering for like 4 hours a week on like Sundays or something that the state pays for, where you're put into groups of people and you have some task or project to do, I'm actually, the more that I think about it, the more in favor I am of that. It forces you to see other human beings once a week. It forces you to socialize with people in your age group. You can even make these things boy, girl, or whatever, so that you have like a variety of people that you talk to. It forces you to see other people in society so you have more favorable opinions of them. And you can like put the labor towards something like beneficial, like cleaning up fucking homeless camps or like serving food to people or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like I've thought about it, and I don't know, man. It seems like a really compelling idea. Like that you would force like groups like, listen, it's Sunday. Get out of your fucking house, okay? Government's paying you $15 an hour or whatever your current job pays you or whatever. Go out. Here's your group of like 11 other people that you're going to work with, and you guys are going to do this project today. Like, I don't know. I think that's super compelling. That idea would be like really interesting to me. One thing that people don't realize, I've talked about this a lot before, but like we're so selective in society with who we associate with. I don't think people realize that there's actually like so many people that they would be chill with if they just like spent time with them in real life. You know, my favorite two examples of this are work and school. You know, most people at school tend to make friends. Most people at school tend to find like girlfriends and boyfriends. Maybe not everybody, sure, but most people do. And it's not like you're selecting for a specialized group of people there. Like you're just thrown into class with random people from like roughly your geographic area, you know? And then same things with work as well, right? Like a lot of people at work start dating and fuck each other and end up forming friendships with people at work. Like, I mean, if you're thrown together with a group of people for some amount of time, you're bound to form some kind of friendship or romantic relationships. But yeah, I like the idea of that, but I'm not typically a fan of working or being around transphobic people in general. And I feel like that I'd be pretty likely if I still live in Texas. I think that like being hold on.
Hey, Destiny music question. Have you ever checked out symphonic metal bands? LIM genuinely curious your thoughts on it and how classical music and opera influence it.
I listen to some, but I don't like it that much. The Siberian Orchestra is the one. I don't know. The sounds don't mesh well for me. I don't really like a lot of they seem, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but they seem a little gimmicky. So I don't know. It's not stuff I like as much. But yeah, I mean, they're interesting. Fuck, what was I just talking about? I think that like a lot of psych research tells us that like the more time that you spend around a certain type of person, generally the more favorable feelings you have of that certain type of person. So like if you get transphobic people and you stuck them in groups with trans people, like that's a really good way to like open them up to the idea. If I'm like totally and completely honest with you, like I had very negative opinions of trans people just because of my affiliation with them online, or not affiliation, but my association, like my interactions with them online. Now, from an intellectual level, I've always like fought for trans rights, and I think trans rights are important, and logically speaking, we should support them, blah blah blah. But like on a just an emotional level, like, I don't know, man. Like trans people online are really scary. But when I started to make like actual trans friends, and I have a couple now that I talk to every now and then that message me, that I run things by or whatever, like my general opinion has been so much higher. Because when I think of like trans person now, instead of thinking of like the crazy fucking trans person that went so hard on me because one time I accidentally said transgendered person instead of transgender person, like instead of thinking that person, I think of like my like one of my two trans friends that I have now, and I'm like, okay, most trans people in real life are super chill, are totally cool, are like just normal people. Like this is a normal trans person. I can't let like, you know, and like I know that like if I fall into those traps, I know that a lot of other people will. Not to say that I'm like some like better than normal human, but like, you know, I think that like associating with people that are of different types of people, even people that you wouldn't necessarily generally like, I think will give you like a more favorable view of those people over time. In Canada, the government requires all high school students to do at least 40 hours of volunteer work that has to be corroborated in order to graduate. It works pretty well. Yeah, we had to do that for my high school because I went to Catholic high school, yeah. My husband is a conservative, I'm a liberal, and we're both slowly going to the middle. Sure. I had a different impression of the law debate. You agreed on the drug war, but he's against policies you are for, like gun registration and background checks. There was more discussion about, oh yeah, there could be. But like, I'm pretty sure that me and Lot would probably agree on major points, because most of the major points that the left argues are usually pretty stupid. Like, for instance, like the obsession with assault rifles is like so stupid. Like, I don't care about assault rifles. Like, fuck it. Fuck that shit. Like, I think background checks, maybe we would quibble over stuff like that, but like that has widespread support in the United States, expanding background checks and stuff. Yeah. Smart people on the left don't usually care about assault rifles. Yeah, but it's like a big meme with like the assault weapon ban and everything. Like everybody on the left talks about AR-15s, and they're so fucking scared of like fuck all that shit. then why hasn't it been implemented? Background checks for guns? I don't know. Your mic has like, yeah, it accumulates like dust and shit, of course, because it sits in front of me like all day and shit. Here's Pixie's take on voluntary. I know her. She responded to like a Pete tweet. I think I already roasted her on that. I remember that. Why doesn't Destiny care about assault rifles, Monkas Mega? Because assault rifles account for really low deaths every year of like people. It's generally handguns and it's generally gang violence. And like one of the big things that contributes to that is the war on drugs. Am I playing a game soon? Well, I said I was going to play COD with Peach a little bit. You've had a couple discussions with leftist intellectuals like your Michael Albert debate. Still never really understood what your impressions were. I hate to sound mean because like he was a really nice guy. But like my impression of Michael Albert was incredibly negative. Like participatory economics, like his whole organization of that. I think I read... Irk, I think you read the same paper. Before going into that debate, there was like it was like a 30 or 40 page paper, I think, that was a response to participatory economics. And I read through like most of the challenges on that. And it was a pretty old paper, I think. And when I brought up most of the points to the guy, he seemed to have no responses. And then like when he responded later, when he tried to start talking about stock markets and he had no idea how like capital worked, and then he admitted that. He was like, okay, well, I don't really know anything about stock markets. And it's like, okay, but you're literally talking about like a whole new form of economic organization. Don't you think understanding like capital allocation or stock market, don't you think that's kind of important? Like that was really weird how he just like, he's like, I don't know anything about stock markets. Fuck that. It's like, you're literally writing about like a whole new economic system. Like, isn't that kind of important? Like, I don't know. Ugh. I'm from the UK, and the idea of owning a gun, not just myself but others, seems really scary. How do you feel about gun ownership? Guns are scary if you don't have any interactions with them. If you've played with guns and shotguns, they're not as scary. I don't know. It's just my opinion. I read some of that and then some of the responses. The responses Albert wrote were basically saying we have to try. It's the right thing to do. Most of the logistical issues aren't addressed in responses. Yeah. Do you think people like Catboy or Fuentes are influencing people about their ideas so that one day their wills might be politically viable? Fuentes might be. Fuentes is a lot more politically prudent or rhetorically effective than the Catboy guy. Catboy guy was just stupid. It was just a random memer. Like, basically, Catboy guy felt like pulling a dude off of 4chan and then talking to him. This is an old meme, but do you ever look up your donators like Invader V said she does? I'd probably do it if I was in this position. Yeah, I look you guys up all the time. I'm super curious. It's funny that V got roasted for it. I don't know if she owned it or not, or if she tried to walk back from it, but yeah, I'm super curious. If you donate shit to me and I like see information, sometimes I look people up. Yeah, I'm curious. Especially like big donors and stuff. Because I'm like, damn, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah, sometimes I'm curious. I don't like dox you. I don't like pass the information on or anything. But yeah, of course, if you're going to like exchange that information with me, sure. But I mean, listen, man, you guys want to look up my address or some shit. Everybody knows where the fuck I live and what I am. I put myself out every day. I don't give a fuck. The most interesting person who has donated, that guy that donated like $6,000 yesterday, I looked back up his shit. That was actually fucking Mark Zuckerberg. Can you guys believe that? He really wants me to go and start posting on Facebook more instead of Twitter, but I don't know, man. I still have to respond to his email. I genuinely worry about people like Nick who are very effective at spreading their rhetoric. How are people supposed to deal with something like, honestly, as sad as it is to say, or maybe, I don't know, like deplatforming him actually seemed to work like pretty effectively. Like, check your crops. Oh shit. True. Oh my god. Wait. Oh no, I've been checking them. I'm good. Oh my god, my trees. Okay, we're at level 67. Hold on. Boom, boom. And we're still at 67. Fuck. Almost 70 though. Did Pikachu fall asleep? I don't know. Fuck. Regarding healthcare costs versus GDP per capita, they actually fall perfectly in line with other countries in a simple regression model. Health spending increases rapidly with real incomes. Notice that the United States doesn't look unusual when income is measured at the household level, which measures the value of the bundle consumed by households, whether the bundle items are one. But why would we expect, if healthcare increases per household income, shouldn't we expect to see, like, it doesn't make sense to me that your consumption of healthcare would increase as you gain more money, but then you wouldn't get better outcomes for it. I don't understand that. Destiny, it's almost 4 a.m. I'm so I can sleep. Can we call tomorrow? Okay, we'll call tomorrow, guaranteed, okay? As the country was rebuilt and its economy stabilized, youth work actions went out of fashion. However, they were revived in the late 1970s in an effort to voluntarily organize youth in political and cultural activities, as the work actions proved to play a large role in the socialization that's involved. Yeah, I guess like the only thing that like worries me is that like hold on, Destiny. It turns out most healthcare that people consume is worthless and doesn't matter, and actually it's all a lie. People just need to drink more water instead, and healthcare costs will plummet. Just go outside. This sounds ironic, but it's unironic. I don't think drinking more water would help much, but I'm willing to bet that like a lot of healthcare related problems, like, oh, I wonder if this is a hot take or not. I don't think it's a hot take. It sounds like a hot take, but I don't think it is. I would be willing to bet that a lot of health issues in the United States could be not improved, but potentially even solved with more diet and exercise. When you consider that like hypertension is like the leading killer, I still think, in the United States, and type 2 diabetes takes 10 years off your lifespan, and both of these things are tied into the amount of exercise and the type of diet you have. I'm actually so hardcore in favor of
Hi DADDD.
I'm so hardcore in favor of things like hardcore sugar taxes. I'm so in favor of that. Bloomberg has a really great talk on that. It seemed hot at the time. A lot of lefties criticized him for it, but yeah, I don't know, like the hot take is state mandated exercise. Ooh, imagine how hot the take would be if the state said that parking lots or public transit had to be located at least like 250 feet away from every building or whatever. You had to walk to places. That there were like mandatory fucking distances between where you'd get dropped off.
Post your favorite animal emote in 3, 2, 1. Cool cat.
What if you built like Shredded City? Wait, have you heard of the YouTube guy Nuance, bro? He just followed and is in Twitch chat. Wait, is he trying to talk to me right now? I feel like Nuance, bro, said some real dumb shit a while ago, but I don't remember what it was. It's been so long. He's not on my file right now. Okay, what if you made... is he trying to talk right now? Does he want to chat? Somebody tell me in Twitch if he is. What if you made, okay, follow me this. What if you made something called Shredded City, okay? Where, like, the laws got more and more harsh every year. So like, let's say for instance, like year 1, like every single door was like 5 pounds to move, right? Like pretty easy. But like you gradually upped the fucking infrastructure of the city. Like if you wanted to climb stairs, they became steeper and steeper. Or like if you wanted to like get through like a hallway or something, there were like doors at the end where you had to be able to like pull like in like a fucking like a lunger, or not a lunge. Oh god, what do you call the pulls when you're on your knees and you do the dumbbell, the lifts? Oh god, what's the name of that? Oh god, what am I thinking of? Rows, yeah, rows. That you had to like open like rip cords and shit to open doors. What if you had like a city that got progressively harder on shit like this? And then after like 50 years, all the people in your city would be insanely fucking shredded. How sick would that be? I always thought, I haven't thought much about this, but I have thought about making something called Fast City, okay? That's the name of it. It would be Fast City. Fast City would have elevators that go up and down very fucking fast. None of that bullshit. If you can't handle like at least like 1G of acceleration going up and down, fuck you, okay? You don't get to ride the elevators. The escalators would be very fast. If you fall off and die, fuck you. You get kicked out of the city. And you go super fast. Get on the escalator and it fucking goes. You know in like airports where the things on the ground like go, those things move fucking 10, 15 miles an hour, right? You get in there, you fucking go, dude. Like Fast G, or not Fast G, I'm sorry, Fast City, okay? Hell yeah. We don't waste time in this bullshit. The spinning doors that you go in would be very fucking fast, okay? You would have to get in quick. There would be no slow people anywhere, okay? What about a city where there are no cars, but all the streets are replaced with trampolines? What? Apparently, Destiny wasn't aware that Liberia was established as a country to ship newly freed slaves. Oh, nice. Is he like sniping quotes out of my conversation? Does he want to come on and talk about everything? Believe it or not only do I not know everything about everything, I also don't pretend to know everything about everything. Like, if I have specific debates coming up, I research like specific things like regarding those debates. But yeah, like, believe it or not, I actually don't know everything about everything. Like, I know that that's hard to understand sometimes. I know that Nuance Bro, the difference between the takes that I give and the takes that Nuance Bro gives, though, is that, like, my dumb takes are done by the fly, like, or on the fly. Like, his dumb takes are solidified in YouTube videos that he's supposed to do research for. So, I mean... Nuance Bro defended race realism? Sure. It's possible. I don't even remember. Oh, somebody linked me a fact check about this too. Hold on, let's read this real quick. So, based on a June 25th, 2015 post on the internet, Lincoln was fervently making plans to send all freed slaves to the jungles of Central America. Once the Civil War was over, the only thing that kept this from happening was his assassination. Wait, hold on. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought Liberia was in Africa, so I got confused when I read Central America, but maybe this is a different meme. Okay. Sorry. My geography is not very good either, but okay. So this must be like referring to a different place that he wanted to send, because it is in Africa. Liberia isn't. Yeah, I know, but this meme is saying that all free slaves were going to go to the jungles of Central America, which is not Liberia. But maybe the meme is referring to something different. But okay, let's see. Destiny, can you find Iran? I know all the geography of the Middle East because I've spent so much time like researching it, right? Or like I had to, like for all my shit. We've done like the Middle Eastern maps a ton or whatever. Okay. All right. The debate over whether states should allow the Confederate battle flag in close proximity to their state capital, reignited by the June 17th killing of 9 African-American worshippers in a historical church in South Carolina, has intensified discussion of slavery and the Civil War on social media. A reader recently asked us to check out claims repeated in a variety of places on the internet that offer a revisionist history of the Civil War with a sympathetic spin on behalf of the Confederacy. Here we'll focus on one of the claims from those sites, one that calls into question whether President Abraham Lincoln was really the great emancipator. Martyred President Abraham Lincoln was fervently making plans to send all freed slaves to the jungles of Central America once the war was over, the internet posts say. Knowing that African society would never allow the slaves to return back to Africa, Lincoln also did not want the slaves in the U.S. He thought the jungles of Central America would be the best solution and conducive to the freed slaves' best interests. The only thing that kept this from happening was his assassination. We wondered whether mainstream historians believe that Lincoln was making plans to send all freed slaves to the jungles of Central America once the Civil War was over, and that the only thing that kept this from happening was his assassination. The short answer is that Lincoln had long favored the colonization option, though as a voluntary option rather than as a mandated removal. Moreover, his issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863 rendered even that voluntary option effectively dead, and since that was more than 2 years before the end of the war, on April 9th, 1865, his assassination didn't stop it from happening. Lincoln never spoke publicly of colonization after issuing the proclamation, and apparently did little behind the scenes to advance the idea after that date, focusing instead on creating a post-war society that included both blacks and whites. The post is preposterous, said Michael Burlingham, a historian who holds a distinguished chair in Lincoln Studies at the University of Illinois at Springfield. The notion of recolonizing slaves in Africa had a long history. The main group supporting the idea, the American Colonization Society, was founded in 1817.
Have a good night.
I know you can't see the text. I don't have my other computer hooked up right now. The goal was the charitable and restorative ideal of unkidnapping people from their homeland in Africa by offering to use private funds to transport them back voluntarily for any who so wished, said James M. Cornelius, curator of the Lincoln Collection at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum in Springfield, Illinois. Monrovia, Liberia, was founded in the 1820s by former American slaves, and by the early 1850s, Lincoln and like-minded politicians were supportive of that approach. But by the mid-1850s, the anti-slavery movement shifted towards stopping the spread of slavery to newly admitted states in the Great Plains and the West. In his book, The Fiery Trial, Abraham Lincoln and American Slavery, historian Eric Foner writes that by 1862, Lincoln, as well as politically moderate members of Congress, saw colonization as at least a piece of the policy puzzle. Both the law providing for abolition in the District of Columbia and the Second Confiscation Act included provisions for the colonization of those willing to emigrate. During 1862, Congress appropriated a total of $600,000 to aid in the transportation overseas of African Americans, Foner wrote. Policy entrepreneurs of varying trustworthiness offered colonization proposals in such far-flung locales as Brazil, Colombia, and the Caribbean Isles of St. Croix. But most black Americans weren't buying. Seeking their support, Lincoln met with a black delegation at the White House on August 14th of 1862 and made the case for colonization.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. It was widely considered a failure. Lincoln offended his visitors and others who read the after-the-fact newspaper coverage by saying bad things such as, it's better for us both, therefore to be separated, and that for blacks to refuse colonization out there would be extremely selfish. Undeterred, Lincoln continued to tout colonization when addressing Congress in December of 1862 and asked lawmakers to offer funding. I cannot make it better known that it is already than it already is that I strongly favor colonization, he said. Yet within weeks, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which offered an entirely different model for post-Civil War America. One of the key elements of the proclamation was that it opened the door to military service for freed slaves. Cornelius noted that Mark Neely, in the Abraham Lincoln Encyclopedia published in 1982, wrote that when Lincoln accepted freedmen as soldiers on January 1st, 1863, he guaranteed a biracial future for the country because no president could ask a man to fight for his country and then tell him it was no longer his country. Foner agreed, writing that Lincoln still retained an interest in colonization, but he would never again publicly advocate this policy. Putting some black men into the military and asking others to labor for wages implied a very different vision of their future place in American society than plans for settling them overseas. Instead, political attention turned to passage of the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery. The idea of colonization faltered further when news of disastrous attempts at settlements filtered back to Washington.
Have a good night.
By 1864, Foner writes, although Lincoln still saw voluntary emigration as a kind of safety valve for individual blacks dissatisfied with their condition in the United States, he no longer envisioned a large-scale colonization. The idea of white America did not die with the Civil War, nor did blacks' own emigration efforts, but colonization as an official policy was dead. And that was well before Lincoln's assassination on April 15, 1865, which was over a year later. His views, like those of millions of other Americans before and during his lifetime, evolved over the course of roughly 30 or 40 years, Cornelius said. Our ruling. A widely shared bit of text on the internet says that Lincoln was fervently making plans to send all freed slaves to the jungles of Central America once the Civil War was over. The only thing that kept this from happening was his assassination. This is incorrect on many levels. Even when he was arguing for voluntary colonization during his first years as president, Lincoln did not envision forced deportations of ex-slaves. Moreover, historians agree that the idea of large-scale voluntary colonization was effectively dead by the time the Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, more than 2 years before Lincoln's assassination. We rate the claim false. Okay, well, but okay. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Good luck. Cappuccino, my dude. I will catch you guys tomorrow, Reno. No debate, so more Final Fantasy VII tomorrow, okay?
You told me stuff I didn't know, and when I actually researched that, I found that out and realized